Round 3 of the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup takes place here at Red Bull Ring in Austria on the just over 4 kilometre long track, which has been resurfaced for the start of this year. Offers extra grip therefore for these 10 cars that are about to take the start of the third race of the year. My name's Johnny Palmer and joined by Graham Goodwin to my right, editor of dailysportscar.com. These cars really entertained during qualifying. There might not be a great deal of them, Graham, but nevertheless it kept us guessing to the very last moment in terms of who was going to get pole position. In the end, SMP Racing stamped their authority on the qualifying session and possibly on the championship at the end of this race, because they look very, very strong in their new 488 Ferrari.
They do indeed. It's the new turbo V8 engine Ferrari, a very different aero, as we'll see if we get a chance to see one of the older 458s a little later on the grid. But the 488 coming from the Road to Le Mans race, point scoring round, of course, in the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Challenge, with maximum points from Le Mans. Wasn't in Imola, so are on the chase. But yes, we might be looking at a very different point situation at the end of this race, Johnny.
Interesting that the chance of rain is now up to 51%. I had a quick walk out of our studio, of our booth a while ago, and there's not a lot of temperature in the day. There are these threatening clouds that we've kind of had for much of this afternoon, but it feels like one of those days that we might see a bit of a shower before it is out, and that could present a problem for the teams in terms of which way to go when they get to their stop, or possibly even before or after it. There may be the need to stop these cars more than once. The plan is that they stop after roughly an hour to hand over to their co-driver. We saw the bronze-rated drivers qualify the cars earlier on across a split session. It's a standard 15 minutes followed by 15 minutes of super pole, and the bronze driver, really the onus is put on them to qualify the car well, but they don't necessarily have to start the race. For the lion's share of these cars, though, it will be the bronze at the wheel, the exception being the number 25 FF Corsa Ferrari, which will have Johnny Molam at the wheel, gold driver, and he'll hand to Ivor Dunbar, as I say, roughly half distance.
Yep, Johnny Molam will be looking to make hay, if he possibly can, from towards the back of the grid, 9th position on the grid. Ivor Dunbar making some big strides in terms of his times coming down in the Ferrari 488, but he's one of the less experienced gentleman drivers on this grid. We've got a quick look at Sally Hillock there at the TF Sports Aston Martin. Drove a really well-controlled race at Imola to take the win there, in a great battle with the Triple F Racing McLaren. That car, the McLaren, is on the front row alongside the Ferrari 488. And Giulia Perfetti, Sally Hillock make up row 2. A varied grid again. Ferrari, McLaren, Porsche and Aston Martin making up the first 2 rows. And it's going to be interesting, Johnny, to see how these very different cars perform on a track that really, I think, has thrown a bit of a curveball to a number of the teams that thought they knew the place. With the resurfacing here, the track is not performing in the way that perhaps some of them expected. We have got the speed.
Mm-hmm.
Dulcet tones of Eduardo Freitas from Race Control. The minty fresh Porsche 911 GT3R, the number 88 car, Mentos Racing.
And Mentos Racing drivers are Egidio Perfetti, who did the qualifying, and Klaus Beckler, who is Austrian, so pleased, I'm sure, to be at his home race and keen to perform. When we were at Imola a couple of months ago now for the the opening round of this championship, Klaus didn't get into the car because it was too heavily damaged after a first corner incident on the opening lap of a 2-hour race. Egidio Perfetti going for an audacious manoeuvre around the outside of the BMS Ferrari. Sadly, it didn't come off for the Norwegian, and the car more or less retired on the spot. There's Thomas Fleur, ready to take the start in his Ferrari. Thomas was out qualifying earlier on today. He has Francesco Castellacci as a team member as well, a co-driver, and that's another of the new Ferrari 488s at the AF Corsa stables disposal, number 51 Ferrari. And we have a new driver in the championship, Taiyu Aida. Double thumbs up from Taiyu there, keen to get going. Already been out on track to qualify the car, of course. And here is Johnny Molam at the wheel of the number 25 car.
Yep, JMO.
And JMO keen to get going as well for, well, a slightly longer stint arguably, because you can put your pro driver in for a bit longer than the AM, so he might be one of the later ones to pit, and therefore we'll get that slightly strange scenario where we'll have a leader of a significant margin because all the other cars have pitted behind it, and then it'll be their job, the pro driver's job, to try and catch Johnny, which by that point will have Ivor Dunbar at the wheel.
And it's a relatively short lap here, of course.
And the championship, by the way, coming into this third round of the season, sees Ewan Hankey and Sally Yoluk at the top of the points, 37 for them. Adrian Quaife-Hobbs and Hiroshi Hamaguchi second in the championship on 36, but now we can say, of course, on 26 points, Alexei Basov and Victor Shaitar because of their pole position. Further messages coming from Eduardo Freitas as the countdown continues. The teams championship headed by TF Sport, again by just a point from Triple F Racing team by ACM. So the 34 car and the 55, and then the 72 AF Corsa Ferrari third in the championship, but starting from pole position. The green flag waves then at exactly 3 minutes.
On the grid, start of the formation lap. Green flag on the grid, start of the formation lap.
Exactly 3 minutes to the hour, which was the build time, and it'll therefore be a 5 o'clock start through till 7 this evening. And a goodly portion of a crowd assembled in the grandstands on the approach to turn 1, and some on the exit of that bend as well, ready to settle back and enjoy 2 hours of endurance racing, round 3 of the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup at this challenging circuit, now a Grand Prix venue, of course. Back again, it disappeared from the calendar for a little while. It's the old Österreich ring. It's been called the A1 ring in the past, but now owned by energy drinks company Red Bull. So Red Bull Ring is its relatively new title. And as I say, the expensive job of resurfacing the whole of the track happened through the winter period. But fair to say, it was a job that needed doing. And I guess the circuit owners needed to bite the bullet and realise that it was a big bill, but nevertheless it was worth doing, because that will see the circuit continue on there for many, many years. Here is a confirmation then of the 5 rows of this third round of the season. We were due to have at one point 12 cars, then we hoped it was 11, but sadly another one of those fell away. So it is the 10 starters that we have for the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup. Alexei Basov in the number 72 car starting from pole position alongside Hiroshi Hamaguchi in the 55 McLaren 650S of Triple F Racing. Egidio Perfetti in the Porsche, the GT3 spec 991 Porsche with the Mentos livery. Number 88 starts third alongside the Aston Martin Vantage of Sally Yoluk, who really impressed at Imola, built the car a tidy lead and brought that in then to hand over to Ewan Hankey, who, well, really just needs to keep himself composed. He's a well-established pro driver, is Ewan Hankey, and he was very, very happy to take that Aston Martin to the flag to take the first victory of the season. Nicolas Mislan will start the number 26 Ferrari from 5th position, Thomas Fleur alongside. Philip Hansen in the number 19 Audi from Topwood Motorsports alongside Taiyu Aida in the number 5 Lamborghini, another Triple F Racing car. And then it's Johnny Molam and Pierre-Marie Delina. So expect the number 25 car to make strides through the order in the early stages. It was his teammate Ivor Dunbar that qualified the 9th placed car, as then through the penultimate corner, the right-hander at Rint, comes this 2x2 well-formed rolling grid. The pace car has already peeled off into the pit lane, so now effectively dictating the pace is Alexei Basov in the SMP Racing liveried Ferrari 488. He's really impressed with the power of this new twin-turbo engine, and he brings the cars then across the grid hatchings for this rolling start at exactly 5 o'clock. The red lights change to green, and we're underway then for the third time in the year for the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup. It is a good start for the SMP Racing Ferrari, which is late on the brakes. Cold tyres, remember. Oh, and contact again for the Porsche, and it spins the McLaren 650S, which then gets walloped by Johnny Molam. And that, I'm afraid, has resulted in certainly retirement for the McLaren. And what of Johnny Molam's Ferrari, Graham Goodwin?
Well, that car was hit by at least 3 different cars. It was collected by Perfetti, I'm afraid, to the rear, spun around and hit, I think, by 2 different Ferraris, one of which was Johnny Molam's car. That is now carrying damage to the front left corner. Bodywork, I suspect tyre as well for Johnny, so he's dropped right back. But that was bitter, bitter luck for Hamaguchi. Absolutely the innocent party there.
There is possibly one of the ailing Ferraris, Nicolas Michelin, in the classic and modern racing Ferrari, which
safety car
looking slow, and the safety car pretty obviously deployed because of the mess that is now that McLaren 650S front left wheel, just no longer underneath the car. It's been ripped off. It's positioning there for the suspension struts, and it was it contact between the Ferrari and the Porsche initially that then drove the Porsche into the McLaren?
Now I'd need to have a look at that one again from this angle, and in fact there's already been contact because the Ferrari is losing coolant. The 25 Ferrari is losing coolant before it ever gets to the corner.
Wow.
I don't think it hit the Porsche at that point, but then poor Johnny Molam's got nowhere to go. So there'd been contact, or there'd been an issue for the number 25 Ferrari before it got to the corner. It was already trailing a fair amount of fluid before we got to the apex of the turn.
That is one, if I was sat at home, I'd be rewinding and watching every car individually to find out exactly what happened. But the Porsche, as the cars will now actually come through the pit lane behind the safety car, and that makes sense. A good decision from Eduardo Freitas, because the risk, of course, of running these Michelin tyres over debris and parts of suspension and bodywork.
And also, there's a lot of fluid down at that corner. So
the Audi's not followed the safety car line.
That's going to be a big problem for Philip Hansen.
So we've got everybody still in the race running down the pit lane, apart from Philip Hansen, who is staying at the safety car's pace. I bet he can't actually see the safety car from where he is, because the pit wall is relatively high here at Red Bull Ring. And Hiroshi Hamaguchi, I'm afraid, looking very forlorn indeed, walking away from a damaged McLaren 650S. He'd qualified that really well this morning, and the car had prepped the machine in readiness for this 2-hour event, and he goes no further than the second corner. Here is the Audi then. It needs to slot into its rightful position, but nevertheless it might still be pinged by Eduardo Freitas. A damaged classic and modern racing Ferrari.
I did say 25 car, it's 26 I was referring to throughout. It's the number 26 classic and modern car. That's the car that had the fluid coming from the front corner.
Yeah.
Oh, here we see again. So watching the car at the back here, behind that car had already had contact.
It couldn't stop, and I just wonder whether the fluid that it was laying down, it shoved the Porsche, and then the Porsche, as a result, slammed into the McLaren, which spun it round.
No, the Porsche had already hit the McLaren before it was hit by the 458.
Okay.
Whether or not there'd been a clash, there's something had happened to the 26 car before it even got to the corner.
Right. It looked like a sort of classic motorway accident where you've got one car clanging into the one in front, which then shoves that into the one in front, and something's got to give. So the McLaren is the big retirement. Johnny Molam, interestingly, hasn't had the need to pit.
He has pitted.
Oh, he did pit.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're definitely down.
Well, everybody came down the pit lane, remember?
Yeah, but
he's pitted again.
Both Michelin and Molam didn't emerge from the pits.
Didn't emerge again, rightio.
Here comes Johnny Molam.
So clearly he feels happy, or the team feel happy to continue on. It's the front left corner we should be most concerned about. Front left of the 25 collecting the McLaren, and as we've said, Johnny with nowhere to go as the cars scattered left and right, avoiding the spun 650S. Hiroshi Hamaguchi looking for a lift home, stuck on the wrong side of the circuit.
I suspect we've seen the last of the 26 car as well.
Interesting though that almost had a problem from the rolling start, and I just wonder whether fluid was leaking onto the brakes or certainly onto the tyres, and the 26 car struggled to stop at turn number 1. But yeah, that front left wheel is going to be left on the ground, I think, as the McLaren 650S is craned away from turn number 1. So the suspension mounting points, many of them, if not all of them, snapping from away from the tub. Such was the ferocity of the contact, and the rest of the field works its way down the pit lane once again.
It's a sad sight. A car that should have been in contention, I'm afraid. I thought the innocent party there, Johnny.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't really see what Hiroshi Hamaguchi could have done any differently. Now, just
again.
whether there's any contact between the Ferrari and the Porsche, first of all.
There is.
And that then pushes the Mentos Porsche a little bit too wide. It's tough, isn't it? Because I think Perfetti was on the brakes, but he was on the limit, and he got a shove up the rear end, which...
And indeed, the McLaren was caught by 3 different cars. So what happened there, we had 3 cars nose to tail. The pole position 72 car, then the 88, then the 26. The 26 slightly outbraked himself.
Yeah.
That seemed to push the Porsche initially into the 72 car, and that momentum carried on and collected the 55, the
Yes.
McLaren.
And actually, Hiroshi Hamaguchi's line through that first corner was pretty good. He was giving the SMP Racing Ferrari racing room.
He was indeed.
He was giving potentially Egidio Perfetti racing room. What he didn't expect was the Porsche not to be able to stop.
Back in, I'm afraid, for Johnny Molan. The 26 car clearly burst a radiator at that point.
Yes, okay.
So first of all, Perfetti hit the McLaren. Then there was a minor brush with the 26 car, and then Johnny Molan, unsighted by all of that happening to his right, brushed across with the front left of his car against the front left of the McLaren, turned around.
That's right, and he was kind of caught between a spun McLaren and the car to his right, and he was unsighted as well, just had nowhere to go, and slammed into that front left corner of a very sorry looking number 55 McLaren. The Triple F racing crew have been through the wars in the opening few races of the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup, because of course they turned up at Imola with a Lamborghini which didn't race. That was heavily damaged in practice or qualifying, I forget, but certainly before the race itself. And Hiroshi now working his way down that grass bank to find a way back to the paddock. And it's a long journey for him, of course, from Japan to Austria.
For not even one corner.
Well, indeed. He will have enjoyed his weekend up until that point. Showed really good pace in qualifying this morning and the test sessions as well.
So I'll revise one part of my earlier statement, in that I suspect Egidio Perfetti was a relative innocent in that.
Yeah. Yes, and apologies if I was suggesting that again it was an issue at the first corner for the Mentos Porsche. Certainly shoved into that moment after a rather too hot a start for the number 26 car, and the only question then in my mind was the Ferrari leaking fluid before it stopped for turn 1, but I think it was, as you say, as a result of the radiator being pierced, and
so
then
double impact with the Porsche.
Yeah, correct. So
one point of significance here, in fact 2 points of significance, is number 1 is that Sally Yullock is through into second place behind the safety car.
Yes, absolutely.
And number 2 is that Johnny Molan, after that second longer pit stop this time, I think, did not lose a lap. He didn't. He got out ahead.
So that could be crucial come the end of the race. So Sally Yollock, winner at Imola, up to second, as Graham says. But before we go any further, let's get some news from the pit lane with Charlie George.
Yeah, I'm down here with Ivor Dunbar. Ivor, that's not the start you had in mind, was it?
Definitely not. No, we'll just have to see whether or not that right front, left front wheel is actually secure. If it is, he's got enough time to catch him up before the restart. We're back where we started. He made up a few places on the grid, but he'll have another go, I'm sure.
Now, you were one of the only teams to start your professional driver first. What was the thinking and the strategy behind that?
That was just to mix it up, hope that something might happen and come to us. Unfortunately, the thing that happened was with us, but there we go,
Okay, well, fingers crossed that all is okay with the car and he can make some time up now.
Yeah, exactly. There's a long way to go yet.
Thank you, Ivor.
No problem.
And that was Johnny Molan roaring by to try to catch up the safety car train. He's not going to manage that quite. the safety car on the way into pit lane now, Johnny.
Yeah, and Alexei Basov almost racing the safety car driver through Rindt corner. Needed to be careful he didn't overtake it before the safety car was fully off track. But we'll now see the green flag at the start line, and we are back to full speed racing with exactly a minute and an hour and 50 minutes to go. So, as we were, gentlemen, as the Audi works its way through turn number 1, and this is the second racing lap in anger. Johnny Molan wasn't able to get quite close enough to the safety car train, but he should be a little quicker than many of these drivers in the field. Obviously, that's a gold driver up against bronzes, so we will keep you updated on the progress of Johnny Molan. Sad to say, though, that we are now 2 cars down, after Nicolas Mislan looking unlikely to rejoin this race, and of course the retirement of Hiroshi Hamaguchi. But on the attack is the number 19 Audi R8 of Philip Hansen, with Thomas Fleur right up ahead. Can he find a way by? Not quite, into Rauch corner, but there'll be another opportunity in a moment. Thomas Fleur goes a little bit too hot into that corner, so runs wide out onto the curb, and Philip Hansen a cleaner line through turn 3. As we concentrate on the lead of the race, Alexei Basov given no time to think here. Sally Yoluk is applying the pressure early on.
And just to keep an eye on Johnny Molan's progress, he was 59 seconds back from the leader as he started the lap that the safety car train were released. So didn't quite make it up, but will be barrelling on now in pursuit of this pack. Remains to be seen as well whether or not there's going to be any sanction applied to Philip Hansen for missing that safety car call to follow through into pit road. He's not made it by Thomas Fleur. Here comes Perfetti, looking for a way past Sally Yoluk to the inside. Squeezed a little by the Turkish driver there towards the pit wall, but all fair in love, war and motorsport. Charlotte Sally makes it through, Perfetti follows through.
It's interesting that. I thought that Perfetti was enough alongside to actually make that move, but in the end Sally Yoluk said, no you don't, sunshine, I'm having this corner first, and they just about avoided contact, with GT3 Perfetti though showing good pace across the start finish line. Thomas Fleur is there in 4th position in the silver and red Ferrari, and then the Talk With Motorsports Audi R8 just behind. And not very far away from that battle is Teo Aida in the number 5 Lamborghini, the only Triple F racing car that still remains in the race. Opportunity to see this start again from head on, and yeah, the radiator of the number 26 Ferrari is long gone, isn't it? It's pouring fluid out after the contact. Nearly collected the race leader, actually, did Perfetti, who'd been shoved, and the Audi did well to avoid the back of the number 26 Ferrari. Lamborghini off onto the grass. I feared for potentially a track rod being broken on the second Triple F Ferrari. It was a lurid spin or slide there from the Lamborghini Huracan, and I thought maybe one of the rear wheels was steering there, but no,
it
avoided
was just,
any contact.
Basically, just it was steering in extremis.
Yes,
and almost drifted his way through that corner and collected it up nicely.
And to prove that fact that the car is still performing well, Teo Aida, who's new to the championship, is running in 6th position and posting some good times. Not quite as good as Philip Hansen on that last lap, but he's not very far away from the Audi as they emerge out of turn number 1. Meanwhile, in 2nd position, Sally Yoluk having a lot of pressure to contend with here from Egidio Perfetti in the Mentos Racing Porsche. This is allowing Alexei Basov the gap out the front. He is escaping into the distance. 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, not very far from each other. Starting to pair off a little bit though, with Thomas Fleur and Philip Hansen having a nice private battle for 4th position.
Good stuff from Philip Hansen. He's finding his way with this car. He's had some time in the car with Nigel Moore in Brit Car Racing in the UK, as well as this Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup. Of course, this car together with the rest of the field here, part of that Road to Le Mans race in June on the Le Mans circuit, race morning.
So 0.3 of a second is the gap between 4th and 5th place cars. Thomas Fleur to Philip Hansen. Aida won't be very far away, and we will compare his lap times to the 2 cars up ahead. But this is the battle of the moment, arguably. Egidio Perfetti, a good run through Rindt corner this time around, and Sally Yoluk, winner in Imola, remember, so can contend with pressure. He had quite a lot of defensive work to do in Italy in May, and this time keeping the car right in the middle of the road, not swerving from left to right. Egidio Perfetti, polar opposite really, tries to the right, tries to the left. He might get a good run on the Aston Martin this time around. Remember, the next corner at the top of the hill is a right-hander, but even before we get to that point, Perfetti might be in front.
That was good, very much better traction out of the corner from the Porsche man. He's in the right place, but not got the ponies of the Aston Martin. Sally Yullock takes the line and powers away again. Is this allowing the chasing pair to catch? Not
What's interesting, because in the mid-range, the Porsche looked to have the pace on the Aston, but then as it got further up the hill into the higher gears, the Aston just had, well, literally an extra gear, it would seem, to work its way towards turn number 2. I'm sure that's not the case, but the balance of performance almost being displayed perfectly there. Big, grunty Aston Martin front-engine car versus the rear-engined 991 GT3 Mentos Racing Porsche, and they are lapping in near identical times here, but they're finding their times in different places around the Red Bull Ring.
One of the real positives of GT3 racing is that these cars do produce remarkably similar lap times in very different ways. Traction, acceleration, the grip comes in different parts of the track, and that does give us some great racing at times.
Fabulous final corner there where the cars really bottom out. There's a lot of compression. The drivers have to hang on for dear life as the car settles itself. Egidio Perfetti has another little bit of a look, a think about a move for second position, but decides better of it. I think his best opportunity is getting a good exit out of turn 1. And as I say, got more than fully alongside the Aston a lap ago. Can't do it this time though. And maybe Sally Yolok is slightly wiser to the attempts of Egidio Perfetti, unless Perfetti's got better ideas out of turn 2. Let's have a look. The traction from the Porsche is impressive, but again the Aston Martin can keep it at an arm's length. No change in the positions further behind, by the way. Thomas Fleur is still ahead of Philip Hansen. That's for 4th and 5th. Meanwhile, a gap of 5.1 seconds from Alexei Basov back to second place Yolok. What of Johnny Molan? Well, he's just done the best Sector 2 time of anybody. So the 25 Ferrari is pushing on. Still in 8th position of 8 cars, but 9 seconds quicker than Pierre-Marie Delina. So he is catching him at a goodly rate of knots.
Should be with him within 2 laps, but then there's a further 30 seconds to find before he gets onto the back of this train. So Johnny will be taking his targets where he can find them at the moment. 18 minutes almost into the race now. Perfetti tries, let's see whether or not flashing those headlights might make a difference.
I'm not sure, because Sally Yolok soaked up so much pressure in Imola. He'll be drawing on the experience he gained in Italy, but also, of course, on the 8.5 mile Le Mans lap. These cars supported the 24-hour race on Saturday morning as part of the Road to Le Mans. We had championship GT3 cars, non-championship GT3 cars, and also the LMP3 machines as well, which made it a really good race for a little over 50 minutes. This time the Porsche can't get the overlap, unlike 2 laps ago for Egidio Perfetti. Seems to be able to apply the power slightly quicker than the Aston Martin, unless that's just the flat 6 screaming away.
No, I think it's always going to be, isn't it? Always good traction from the Porsche. The rear engine just gives them that extra edge.
Yeah, with all the weight over those rear wheels.
And all the other factors come into play, and Yolok is able to use his Aston Martin to the optimum.
Into Pirelli corner they go then. This is the 10th time that they will have done that. Losing a little bit of daylight as well. Not the fact that we're getting towards sunset, but I think that's again evidence of quite a bit of cloud cover and 51% chance of rain, remember, at the start of the race. So that could add yet more variables into this mix. Alexei Basov though, unshakable at the head of the order. 5.2 seconds was the gap back to Sally Yolok a lap ago, and this time Wait 5 seconds or so. Oh, and side by side, in fact, across the line. Egidio Buffetti tries the inside line. The gap has extended to 6.1 seconds to the race leader, but it's much, much smaller than that for second and third. As Egidio Buffetti, well, Jolek didn't get the exit speed out of turn 1, and this might be Buffetti's chance. The problem is he's on the outside line. The next corner's a right-hander. It's Buffetti to driver's left and Sally Jolek to driver's right. Can he do a little contact? There was contact between the Aston Martin and the Porsche, and will Sally Jolek trail brake very slightly into the corner, meaning that the advantage goes deeper into Remus, and this might present the opportunity, the best opportunity that Egidio Buffetti's had to this point. He now has the inside line on that run down to Ralph corner. This for second position, late on the brakes I'm sure from Buffetti, and he should finally be able to get second position away from Sally Jolek. Indeed he does.
Finally had to give better of it, but that was, well, remarkably close stuff, wasn't it? It's a little bit naughty going on the run down to the to turn 2.
Plenty of curb being taken by the Mentos Porsche out of Pirelli corner. They work their way through Wirth now as well, and Sally Jolek needs to be careful not to lose touch with the Porsche, as now Johnny Molam has been gaining at a fair rate of knots on Pierre-Marie Delina, and that is the place change. Chance again to check the potential damage on the front left corner of that Ferrari. They've checked the wheel. I'm sure Johnny will be reporting back to the team. It won't be ideal, it's fair to say, for the FF Corsa Ferrari, but Johnny doing a good job in getting one of those places back up to 7th position and ahead of Delina.
Got a much, much bigger task now to catch the Lamborghini, which is a further, how many, 40 seconds up the road. Car 26, by the way, which does look to be out of the race, reported to the stewards for causing a collision at turn 1.
And this was, well, there was almost contact on the main straight. Then Sally Jolek didn't get a good exit out of turn number 1, which led to this moment when the two cars were door handle to door handle, and there was contact, certainly, between the Aston Martin and the Porsche. This corner favoured the Aston of Sally Jolek, but of course he had to run deeper into the corner in order to defend. Meant his exit speed wasn't quite as good, and as we've been saying, the Porsche's traction at low speed is superior to the Aston Martin. They are totally together there, front wheels level with front wheels on the run into Rauch, but crucially the Porsche had the inside line, and Sally Jolek maybe struggling for a bit of grip on the exit.
Gutsy stuff from Buffetti there, and brilliantly done actually there, but Sally Jolek hung on in there but realised that the game was done at this point of the race. He'll tuck in behind and try to stick with the Porsches, dropping back just a little. So that has allowed Basov to get away pretty comprehensively. He's now just done the fastest lap of the race again at 1:30.184 this time, approaching 8 seconds. 7.9 seconds clear now of Egidio Buffetti, with Jolek a further 2 seconds back now.
So gap growing between second and third place cars. Thomas Fleur has edged away from Philip Hansen for 4th position. So Hansen is still 5th in the Tocqueville Motorsports Audi. Then it's a Lamborghini driven by Tayu Aida in the number 5 car. And then Johnny Molam, who, well, last time around did a 1:32.7. He has been down in the 1:31s, and this lap he's on now should be quicker. Just done the best Sector 2 time of anybody out there in the race.
The 32 will have been, of course, because he was getting by Delana last time around in the 14 car, so that would have taken just the edge off his pace.
But Aida isn't very far away from Molam's pace. Of course, his previous experience starting to tell now in GT300 in the Super GT Championship of Japan. He's raced GT3s at that level of World Motorsport and Lamborghinis as well, so used to the car.
Molam, though, takes 3 seconds out of him on that last time around, and that's a 1:30.821, not that far away from the fastest lap of the race for Johnny. But he'll be pretty gutted. He's 64 seconds back from the leader.
Yes, trying to get as close to the race leaders as possible before the end of his stint and the start of Ivor Dunbar's, who we heard from on the pit wall. An hour and 36 minutes still to go, with red hot front brakes for Sally Jolek. So on the limit into turn number 1. That little bit of a dip now, which then turns quickly to a rise, a steep rise to turn 2. 2 seconds the margin between Perfetti and Sally Yolok, as the car leans forward on its haunches, slows almost to a dead stop at turn 2, and likewise at turn 3, and then the flowing section of the Red Bull Ring begins out of Rauch corner through Pirelli and Wirth, and then on to Rindt and Red Bull Mobile to finish the lap.
For Sally Yolok now, a different phase of the race begins, because it's pretty clear that Sally needs to consolidate, look to see whether or not he can put further pressure on Perfetti, but to consolidate, make sure he builds as much as possible of momentum to gather points in this GT3 Le Mans Challenge. There's one advantage, and one advantage only, which is, of course, they scored points at Imola, where SMP didn't.
Yes, so they're always going to be effectively a round behind, but SMP Racing have shown dominance very, very quickly, as Delina maybe thinks about a pit stop. It'll be early, very early for a driver change. The yellow Ferrari looked a bit slow into the penultimate corner. Do we see it now? Yes, it has gone down to the pit lane, so an issue presumably for the number 14 Ferrari. Looking very, very slow. Only at that point where the white line goes across the road does the pit lane speed limit apply, but it was close to the speed limit even before it got to the white line, and a potential issue therefore for Pierre-Marie Delina and that Ferrari. Meanwhile, the Audi that wasn't very far away from that yellow Ferrari continues on. Philip Hansen had an early race battle with Thomas Fleur, but the gap starting to open up now to over 2 seconds. Team quickly descending on the car though.
Edge cover open on the number 14 car. Never good news.
AF Corsa, who know everything there is to know about Ferrari 458s and now 488s. And the team checking the obvious initially. Let's hope it's not too much work, because they may just realise it's not worth repairing. Time being lost, obviously. Not much conversation down there. I don't think it's immediately obvious what the problem is. The car hopefully will be handed over to Adrian Delina for the final stint. There's a long way to go before we get to that point. Meanwhile, Alexei Basov continues to find speed. He heads over the line for the 15th time, and that last tour of the Red Bull Ring included an absolute best Sector 1 time, so he's still finding pace and has now eked the gap out to Egidio Perfetti to 8.3 seconds.
Perfetti, though, staying with this sort of pace at this stage. And the good news is, it looks like Delina is about to rejoin the race.
The two Delinas, you can see their names on the roof of the car.
Struggling to select a gear.
Is that right? Yeah. So they're trying to get the message through. They'll be in radio contact, but also hand signals can often get the message across a little quicker. Rear lights flashing. That was the gearbox crunching away, wasn't it? Door open again, engine off. This is not, by the sounds of things and the looks of things, going to be a quick fix for the Delinas. Very tricky though, isn't it, this early stage of the race to be hit by a problem, and generally Ferrari 458s just run and run, don't
Absolutely.
they,
you know, developed to the hilts, really, aren't they? They're a mainstay of GT racing for so many years.
Missing nothing in the race at this stage, with 8.5 seconds the gap between Basov and Egidio Perfetti. Perfetti is quicker now than Sally Yolok, now that he's in some clean air. The Audi R8 being reported to the stewards because of the violation of the safety car procedure, and that was of course when we saw Philip Hansen go down the main straight rather than the pit lane, and we did wonder whether he might be called for that, and the team talk with Motorsport, so we'll wait to see whether there's a penalty. Meanwhile, let's hand to Charlie George, who's down still in the pit lane.
Yeah, I'm down here at the Mentos Racing Garage with Klaus Bachler. Klaus, that was such a close battle for second. As the professional driver, how nervous does that make you?
Yeah, nervous, maybe the wrong word, but I was hoping that he gets fast as possible, because he is at the moment faster than the car, which is now in the third position, and that we get a little bit of gap before the pit stop window opens. And he made it. It was a tough one, but it was good to see. And now the gap to P3 gets bigger and bigger, and so I hope we can fight for the position. Maybe P1, the guys Scheiter, Basso, they look really strong here at the Red Bull Ring, but everything else is for sure possible.
Now, you are our only Austrian driver. Is this a favourite circuit of yours, being your home circuit?
Yeah, I like the circuit a lot. Also, for sure it's my home, so I like also the surroundings here. It's a good feeling to be here and to race here.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
And we of course saw Klaus in action at the Road to Le Mans race, but we didn't see him in Imola, so he'll be dearly hoping that Egidio Perfetti can bring that Porsche in. It's going tremendously well at the moment. Half an hour in the book, by the way, so we look forward to Klaus Bechler's stint towards the end of this race, because he is very, very quick in a Porsche.
He is indeed. Good to see him. In fact, the team clearly pitting in front of the Proton competition pit, where Klaus has spent several years, including a couple of years in the FIWEC. A very quick professional driver in a Porsche, whether it's a GT spec Porsche, GT3 as we've got here, or indeed a Porsche Cup car in the Carrera Cup Deutschland and Porsche Super Cup. Sally Yolok is not letting this go away, you know. He may not be absolutely on the boot lid, or rather the engine cover of the number 88 Porsche, but he's not that far away. Pushing on, keep it consistent, keep it safe, and head for the pit stop window. And if the opportunity arises, he will be able to pick up pieces. Johnny Molan, meanwhile, is edging ever closer to Ida in the 6th position, as he needs to do at this stage.
Yeah, still finding paces, Johnny. A 1:30.5 is his best lap of the race. Went pretty well through sectors 1 and 3 on that last lap. The clear air in front of him is clearly helping, and he's now got the gap down to what, 27 seconds.
Exactly. The problem there for Perfetti, he's lost 2nd position.
Wow.
He went off at turn 8.
So the yellow flags were out briefly.
That was for that. It was he lost the car going into turn 8.
Big style, and over the yellow curbs as well, which won't have treated the under tray of the car particularly well.
And watch Sally Yolok come through here.
Actually engaged first gear very neatly indeed. It was kind of like a J-turn he did out of turn 7. Found first gear, wasn't too flustered by it, and got back into the race. So yes, has lost 1 place to Sally Yolok. All that hard work to get 2nd place away from the Turkish driver has led to nothing, sadly.
Has he bent a wheel? I just saw as the car came through, the front left wheel. It could have been just the sticker on the side of the tyre, but there was something looked a bit odd about that front left wheel. I wonder if he's kinked the wheel.
Okay, down to Rauch corner. We will keep a watchful eye on the behaviour of that Porsche. Certainly those yellow curbs that are actually metal, they're not soft material, and if you catch them in the wrong way, it will be very easy to buckle a wheel, I'm sure. 14 Ferrari back out, and some slightly more brutal tools, you could argue, about to be unleashed on the 458.
Absolutely.
Neatly assembled in a tray.
New fastest lap of the race, meanwhile, for the leader, the number 72 car on a 1:30.032 now. Sally Yolok will be next through.
Basov through again, actually, to complete lap 19. That wasn't a better effort, but as you say, holds fastest lap with his 18th circuit. Here comes the bright yellow Ferrari then for its more significant service. Maybe they have a bit more of an idea of what they've got to deal with now. Driver staying in the car, bit of discussion being had with him, but also checking things on the dash too. The car's going to be lifted up on the internal jacks, rear left tyre taken off. That might be that they're just doing a tyre change whilst the car is in. We'll wait and see. Another good Sector 1 time from Alexei Basov though. Still finding good pace in the number 72 Ferrari. Johnny Molan goes quicker than anybody else through Sector 2.
Which he'd already done before, so he's improved his best Sector 2 time.
And therefore, what's the gap down to between he and Tayu Aida? I wonder. He is catching the Lamborghini very quickly indeed. Say, got the lead, got the gap down to something like 27 seconds last time around. And yes, it's tighter than that now. 24 seconds.
34 seconds.
34 seconds, so it's gone from 37 to 34. Yes. There is a definite improvement.
But Basov, meanwhile, is on an absolute flyer. He's gone purple in both the first 2 sectors. 130.0 turns into a 129.7. So turning up the wick in the lead of this race.
Very good lap there from Alexei Basov. Purple through all three sectors, a 29.7 for the Russian.
First lap under 130 in the race.
We expect Victor Scheitar to be even quicker. So at the moment, there is no stopping SMP Racing, but that is not a reason to disappear from this race, because still plenty could happen. The 488's a new piece of machinery, is still proving its reliability, and of course he'll have to lap a number of cars, as that's a big off for the number 5 Lamborghini. Can't see any damage on that car, but it's ended up way off into the gravel. And is that the exit of Firth corner, the second of the left-handers possibly?
It's at the end. It might be. It's at the end of the lap. It's in the last
Turn
sector.
6, yeah. Turn 6
That is going to gift Johnny Molam, and just had a big wiggle on, didn't he, and lost the back of the car.
So it's coming out of Firth corner before the unnamed right-hand kink, and it's ended up way off into what is a big and deep gravel trap. I'm sure Aida has tried to engage first gear and try to get that car out of the gravel, but all it will do is spin the rear wheels and the car will dig further and further into the stones. Safety car being deployed because of that car then stranded in the gravel trap. That will close everything up. So we will look at this race a whole lot differently, more differently in a moment or two. But let's get some news first of all from Charlie and the pit lane.
Yeah, I'm down here with Ewan Hankey. Ewan, it's fair to say Sally's had quite a busy race so far.
Yeah, he has so far. I mean, he didn't get the best of starts, but due to all the mayhem at turn 1, he came out really well in second. Then had a bit of a battle with the Porsche. The Porsche finally overtook him, and then the Porsche just spun. So Sally's got ahead of him again. So it's kind of a bit of cat and mouse at the moment. So he's doing a great job, and long may it continue.
Absolutely. You guys arrived here with a narrow championship win. Is points the goal for this race?
Certainly points are the goal. I mean, it's a very long championship still to go. So there's lots to play for. Obviously, one of our main championship rivals has obviously had a bit of unfortunate luck there. So, yeah, you know, we just got to bring it home and finish.
Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
But what was a 15-second advantage for the Russian squad, the SMP Racing Ferrari, has evaporated so quickly because of this safety car. It will close everything up at the head of the order, and Sally Yoluk will be on the boot lid again of Alexei Basov, who has all that hard work to do again, Graham.
And there is another interesting factor here as well. We're 23 minutes away from halfway in this race, Johnny, and Johnny Molam will be at the back of this pack in 6th position in a very fast Ferrari. That could throw another spanner in the works for all sorts of people here. So there is the leader. There's Yoluk, Perfetti, Fleur, Hansen, and the next car along is going to be Johnny Molam.
Still waiting for him to appear in that shot, but I'm sure you're right. The 25 Ferrari of FF Corsa. I said not to stray away from this race. It looked like it was going all the way towards SMP Racing, but this is a big twist in the race narrative, as the number 5 car is still being stretched away from its resting place. It's tumbled way off the track there.
Taking a magic sponge for that one, isn't it?
Don't think it would have made contact with the barrier, because the gravel trap did a good job in slowing the car down, but it was a high speed off certainly for that Lamborghini. And Triple F Racing rather will not have any good memories at all from Red Bull Ring. I want to get a long way away from this place as quickly as possible and look forward to the next round at Paul Ricard with both of their cars out, sadly.
I think we'll see that 5 car rejoin the race.
Okay,
don't
good.
think there was damage. I think it was he may well need to come in for a change of race suit, but that was a big moment. But the gravel trap absolutely did its job.
I think my mind was thinking outside assistance is not permitted, but I suppose it is. You get a little bit of a tow from one of the snatch vehicles.
If it's in a position where it requires a move to safety, then you can, and there you go. The number 5 car rejoins, looking a little dustier than it did.
And not before, dropping a lot of stones on the track there, admittedly off the racing line, but that will be something for the rest of the drivers and the teams involved in this race to be wary of. It's going to go straight to the pit lane, isn't it? But so yes, these cars that all are on Michelin tyres, as you would expect for the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup, Johnny Molam there catching up with the safety car train. They will need to be wary for the first few laps of this race to avoid punctures. 14 car is not a well machine, I'm afraid. 2 pit stops now to try and sort this issue out for Pierre-Marie Delina. There is the number 5 Lamborghini. So I'd spoken too soon as far as that car being out of the race, although it's being waved, past the team?
Yes, I know why. It's because they don't want him to lose another lap.
Yes.
So if they're going to pit the car, they'll pit it at the end of this lap. They'll want him to make up the ground.
So now Aida's going to attempt to get close to the safety car train. He's got some work to do because the safety car is already at Worth Corner, the second of the left-handers.
I'm not sure he's got that message, you know.
He's pushing on in order to try and catch the set, but look at the gravel that's still pouring out of that car. And they are quite big stones as well on crucial points of the track. That is a racing,
no, it's coming round for another lap.
Well.
It's coming round for another lap.
Okay, so he could still do it and crucially stay on the lead lap.
14 car, by the way, has still stayed out. Delana has stayed out in that car and is ahead of the safety car train.
So it's had, a total of 4 laps. One of those was a trip through the pit lane behind the safety car, wasn't it? He's had 3 additional stops after that for AF Corsa. Yeah, so struggling then to diagnose the issue and then potentially fix it. The car still does not have race pace, so there's no chance, I would say, of that Ferrari catching up with these 6 cars now that circulate behind the safety car. But we have Taiyu Aida hammering round as quickly as he can to try and catch up with the safety car, but dropping gravel left, right and centre. And these guys who are weaving around trying to get tyre temperature up need to be wary. There are some very sharp pebbles on the road there that could catch them out later on in the race as the Michelins get towards the end of their life. So an hour and 18 minutes still to go. All of these cars will stop at least one more time in order to do the driver change, the mandatory driver change, as part of the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup. But it's been an eventful affair, this 3rd round of the championship, which started a couple of months ago in Imola. That was an entertaining race as well, around a narrow, classic Formula 1 circuit, crowbarred into effectively the town centre at Imola. This is a very different venue, but nevertheless promoting fabulous racing once more in the Styrian Mountains of Spielberg, Austria. Safety car lights are now out, so we will go racing once again. Just the 6 cars tucked in behind the safety car.
The Lamborghini is in the same sector as these cars, but has already lost a lap, of course, in the gravel.
Yes.
But would only be 1 lap, and I don't think it's very far behind clear sector 2 now, so it is, in racing terms, about 25 seconds back from this group. Sally Yolott going to try to have a look at turn 1 here.
Now, rather than choosing to back up the field, Alexei Basov was a touch slow through Rindt, but really got the hammer down out of the final corner. And here comes Johnny Molam straight on the attack, late on the brakes, and picks off Philip Hansen very easily indeed there in the Audi R8. So Molam up to 5th position, as Graham mentioned, gaining from the safety car period. And he has a Ferrari from Thomas Fleur as the next one on his list. These are both 488s. So heading up to the second corner, what's the exit speed like for Johnny Molam compared to the Swiss in front of him? Gap starting to emerge between Perfetti and Fleur, arguably, but Sally Yolok is going to stick with Alexei Basov, isn't he?
He is. 3 Ferrari 488s in the top 6 here. As the Lamborghini appears in the background, it's not that far behind. Top 3 gapping Thomas Fleur. Sally Yolok is having a good old look here.
I think if a move is to be made, it needs to be made now, because the danger is Basov will get back into the rhythm that he had clearly found in the opening portion of this race, in between safety cars, if you like. And the danger is, as Basov is showing signs of now, that he'll get into his stride and edge back further away. Yolok still in touching distance as they head for Rindt corner now. But also Sally Yolok will need to keep a watchful eye on that rear view mirror, with Egidio Perfetti having way out over the curbing there, and the extra runoff Now he's got a good exit speed as a result of that. They're also lapping Pierre-Marie Delina, but Perfetti arguably got such a good slingshot because he went way off the track. I'll be surprised if he doesn't incur the wrath of the stewards there, as Johnny Molan will pick off Thomas Fleur now, and Delina trying desperately to stay out of the way of everybody. Busy turn one there with cars lapping others, and Sally Yolek trying to repay the favour on Egidio Perfetti as they head for one more contact. We've been there before.
Repaid the favour this time.
Maybe so. What's the exit speeds like then out of turn 2? Porsche initially with the good drive, but then the Aston Martin really comes into its own through the mid-range and towards the top end speed, and yeah, they needed a break just at the point where the Aston Martin was getting the overlap there. Sally Yolek has the speed, I reckon, in the top range of this Aston Martin. Remember, 6 litre V12 in the front of this Aston, not short of power, but it is pegged back in other ways, and these cars behave very differently, one being front engine and one being very much rear engine, well over the rear axle in that Porsche.
Here comes Johnny Molan trying to get to terms with this battling pair. I reckon if you want to learn some colloquialisms in Turkish, tune into Radio TF Sports.
Yes, Sally Yolek will have to keep his elbows nice and wide to keep Johnny Molan behind. There's been a change behind that as
Philip
well.
Hansen has gone ahead of Thomas Fleur as well, so that's a move forward through the field from Philip Hansen. He's back into 5th position.
Yes, good spot there. So Philip Hansen and the Audi going strongly. Thomas Fleur maybe made a mistake on that lap. A 1:34, yes he did, very slow in comparison to Hansen.
Here's the replay. There's Delana's yellow Ferrari, but Perfetti up the inside, squeezed and then almost checked up on the exit there, and this is where the contact came. A little bit too much of a defence there from Perfetti.
Maybe thinking he was clear of the Aston, but evidently was not, and slammed into the side of the Aston Martin. But the Aston took the hit pretty well, didn't unsettle the car too badly, and Sally Yolek still able to exit turn 2 with good speed, and then threatened down at Rauch on that lap. Got an hour and 13 minutes still to go, and we've been here before, Graham. The number 14 Ferrari is back in.
This is actually a driver change though this time, and fastest first sector of the race goes to Sally Yolek. So all 3 of the lead cars in the 22.9s, but it's marginally quicker 22.9 for the Aston Martin.
Not a particularly hurried driver change, as Adrian Delina now gets on board. Let's hope for better fortunes for Adrian rather than Pierre-Marie, who now steps out of that car. A stint to forget, sadly. An hour and 13 minutes to go then. Over the line goes Johnny Molan, and he is within touching distance of Sally Yolek. Up to turn number 1 goes that battle for 3rd position behind Egidio Perfetti. Alexei Bassov, by the way, 2.7 seconds now the gap from him to Norwegian Perfetti. Time still tumbling though, particularly through sector 1, so track conditions are obviously pretty good. Cars continue to get lighter in this opening stint. They will be fuelled at the end of this stint for the predominantly bronze part of the race, but Johnny Molan the exception. Gold driver taking the opening stint for FF Corsa. And out of Rauch corner, Johnny Molan would dearly like to be ahead of the Aston come the stops, and ideally ahead of Egidio Perfetti as well. Both are possible. We might go to, what, an hour and 10 minutes into this race and then hand over to Ivor Dunbar. Meanwhile, other drivers preparing themselves to get on board their relevant cars. Wet weather tyres ready as well on the trolleys, I noticed. Tricky to judge the weather for the remaining hour and a bit, as the Aston Martin is now well and truly having to defend from Johnny Molan's Ferrari.
Yeah, Molan looking racy now. Delana Ferrari will emerge just as this trio complete the lap. There is the yellow Ferrari. Joins in stage right. Will not involve itself, I'm sure, here. I'm just looking for an opportunity here to get by this pair of battling bronzes.
So out of Remus corner goes the fight for effectively second position as Basov puts in another great time through sector 1. So he's not being distracted by this scrap behind him. He probably can't even see it now because he's edged away to such an extent. Johnny Molim in 4th position. The Aston Martin in the middle of your shot is in 3rd position, and then Perfetti running 2nd, heading through a right-hand kink immediately after Rauch corner. Set the car up for Pirelli, the left-hander, immediately followed by Wirth, and Perfetti taking plenty of extra bit of track there. You kind of can do that on the approach to Wirth corner because that's where the short version of the Red Bull Ring feeds back in. They use that for European truck racing and 1 or 2 club events that take place here to make what is not necessarily a long track a bit shorter. Heading into the penultimate corner though now, Johnny Molim, much better speed, carried through Rindt and Red Bull Mobile. This might be the Brits' best opportunity now to overtake Sally Yollet. The TF Sport Aston shows again though good speed down the main straight, and that means that the gap is two car lengths probably. Johnny Molim was not close enough. And what's the speed like up the hill this time for the twin turbo charged engine in the back of the Ferrari 488? Actually straight line speed up the steep hill towards turn 2, very equal between the Porsche, the Aston and the Ferrari.
Just wonder whether or not that's impacted the start of the race. It's just a minor dynamic effect for Johnny. Doesn't seem quite to have the straight line punch of the 72 car, does it?
That is a good point. He'll be nursing an ailing, very slightly ailing car to the finish, and will obviously have to try and give Ivor Dunbar a little bit of information on the changeover as to how to manage that car to the finish.
All of a sudden, by the way, we're now talking not about Johnny Molim on Sally Yollet, but Charles Yollet on Egidio Perfetti, because the challenge from the Ferrari behind has added some fire in the belly of the Aston Martin driver.
The other thing that FF Corsa will need to keep a watchful eye on is the wear of that front left tyre. If it's dislodged the hub very slightly after the big impact with the McLaren, then might be wearing the tyre on the inner edge or the outer edge far more than they would like. And of course, all the cars in the race will need to be wary of potential punctures later on after so much gravel was left on the circuit from that Lamborghini that rejoined, the number 5 machine, which still has at the wheel, by the way, Tayu Aida.
Running still in 7th position, a lap down, having languished in the gravel just a little too long, waiting that tow. Another fastest first sector from the lead car, the 72 SMP Racing Ferrari 488, another one of the 22.8s, but quicker than its last effort there.
Tayu Aida due to hand over to Andrea Caldarelli, both drivers with significant Super GT experience. The Italian is a gold-graded driver, so it should be very entertaining to see him on board the number 5 Lamborghini, see what he can offer. The second place battle works its way out of Rauch corner, and the 14 Ferrari is back in again. This is the 6th stop that the number 14 Ferrari has made now. Last time around it was in for 2.5 minutes for the driver change, but this is because of technical problems once again, and one of the AF Corsa Ferrari mechanics straight into the engine bay to try and work out what exactly the problem is and try and do a quick fix on it. Ideally they'd like to push that car back into the garage, I'm sure, and really get to grips with the issue, but they're trying to keep the car competitive where possible. Sadly, it is now 9 laps there or thereabouts off the leader.
Fastest lap of the race again goes the 72, 1:29.754 now, and beginning to stretch away that lead.
Gap's emerged this time between the Porsche and the Aston there, hasn't it? So Perfetti able to work his way away from this fight for 3rd position. That might be Sally Yollet being more distracted by the car behind. Oh yes, Graham is pointing to the front left corner of that Ferrari 488.
Dive planes are flapping away. There's a piece of bodywork there which might well be not helping Johnny on ultimate turn-in.
Yes, very good spot that. It's almost like a portion of the splitter has been torn away though as well, or is it just a dive plane that's flapping in the breeze?
It's certainly a dive plane at least, and I think it may be the forward element of the wheel cover.
Yes. Okay, so clearly that is going to be a nightmare to drive, I would imagine, and take that into consideration. Johnny Molan doing a stellar job to bring it back into that. I mean, he was helped by the safety car, admittedly, but he's well on the pace now.
Well, Johnny's job at this point is to bring that car through to get his gentleman driver into the car, and with limited risk.
Yes. Obviously, the team would have hoped that Johnny would have been leading the race by this point, although Alexei Basov would have proved stern competition, I'm sure. But very probably he would have been in second position, and he's not very far off that. Quite a way far off the track at that point, though, and that's indicative of quite how hard JMO is pushing out of Rint Corner. Caught one or two of those yellow sausage curbs. That would have had the teeth chattering as he worked his way to the final corner.
Another fastest lap, meanwhile, from the lead car. It's a 1:29.594 now from Alexei Basov.
Up the hill goes Perfetti in the Porsche, the Aston Martin of Sally Yoluk, and then the Ferrari 488 of Johnny Molan. Totally together. Alexei Basov loving the fact that they are, because he continues to extend the lead over 7 seconds. Down to Rauch Corner goes the SMP Racing Ferrari, and then in the distance, all three cars with the headlights on, the second place fight. Fifth position still in the hands of Philip Hansen in the Audi R8, by the way. Thomas Fleur is in sixth, and then it's Tayou Aida in seventh position.
Much better run this time from Johnny Molan. Had a quick look up the inside of Sally Yoluk. Now right on the terms with the Aston Martin. Is there a way by, though?
Can't get the overlap on the approach to Pirelli Corner. He'll try again at Worth, but no. And now opportunity starting to run out on this lap anyway. Might try and get a good exit out of the final corner over the line. Perfetti showing signs of pitting, though, so we might well see the second place car, the Porsche Gets, dive into the pit lane, and this could be Johnny Molan then, his opportunity to bring the car again in from second position, because these cars automatically will become the second and third place machines now as Perfetti pits in the Mentos Racing Porsche. It'll be Perfetti out and Klaas Bechler in. Up to turn one goes the scrap for second and third then, with Sally Yoluk still trying to stick those elbows out as wide as he can to keep a rampant Johnny Molan behind him. Really revved up, I'm sure, after what's happened in the race so far on that first turn.
A third consecutive fastest lap of the race now from the 72 car. 1:29.4 this time around, takes the gap up to 9.6 seconds. Johnny Molan will be desperate now to get by this Aston Martin. Sally Yoluk, I have to say, he's doing a great job of keeping him back.
Yes, because there's not blocking as such. He's not swerving across the road. This is fair driving, and really the outright pace of the Aston Martin is proving itself to be a stern challenge for the new Ferrari 488 with its twin turbocharged engine.
Francesco Castellacci gets aboard the 51 Ferrari, and in two comes number 5 Lamborghini. Caldarelli will be getting aboard that car.
And we are almost at half distance, so expect the flurry of pit stoppers to begin roughly at this point. We might get a few more at the end of this lap, but Johnny Molan will stay in the car for as long as possible. Whereas all the other cars in the field, of course, started with their bronze driver, so we're likely to see those cars stop sooner rather than later to give the lion's share to the pro driver. Some teams might decide to slice it exactly 50-50. Johnny Molan still can't find a way by Sally Yoluk, though, as the second place fight heads on to its 35th lap now. Meanwhile, Alexei Basov playing games again at the front. It's a new Sector 1 fastest time, an absolute best, so going purple through there. Can he add to it with two further purple sectors? We'll have to wait and see.
He takes the lead for the first time since the safety car beyond 10 seconds as Klaas Bachler comes out into the battle. What can Bachler do?
So Mentos Racing back into the race. Perfetti will feel like he's done a decent job there, apart from the spin, which meant that from second place he fell to third. Thomas Fleur has been in, and therefore hands over to Italian Castellacci. And that's another 488 from AF Corsa. So the 51 car back into the race. And we've also seen a stop for the number 5 Lamborghini, the Triple F racing team by ACM. So Tayou Aida handing over to Andrea Caldarelli.
Yep. Police look on. You can see here, move along as the Aston Martin pits. Through goes Johnny Molam. He will be scored in second position on this lap. But the leader's in.
The leader is in. Alexei Basov, there he is. So across the line, Johnny Molam now will lead the race. With another 30 seconds to go, we will reach half distance. So car 5 has already done the stop. We're seeing 34 and 72 down pit road. Sally Yolok handing over to Ewan Hankey in a moment or two. And Victor Scheitar will strap himself in to the SMP Racing Ferrari. But Alexei Basov will be very, very happy with the job he's done. The safety car in the middle of the stint won't have helped, but he didn't let that flummox him and stress him out too much. Just got his head down, did the hard work again, and has built the gap up, as Graham says before the stop, to over 10 seconds.
So Victor Scheitar strapped in. Ewan Hankey the same, a little way down the pit lane. And Nigel Moore now getting aboard the Audi. I have to say, very good stint from Philip Hansen.
Yeah. Well, continued to improve actually through the stint. He set his best time of the race probably about 3 laps before the pit stop, so he was showing consistency but also some improvement as well as the team jump into action. A lot of gravel on the exit of the pit lane, and the marshals doing a brave job down there, relying on their colleagues to warn of any other cars that could leave the pit lane, no doubt with whistles. But the brooms in action to clear up the gravel that's been left by presumably the number 5 Lamborghini Huracan, which had that very gravelly off-track moment with the leader at the wheel and needed a snatch tractor to get it back into the race. But I called that a bit too early, saying that the 5 car would need to retire. It's certainly not done. It's back in the race, and we assume with Caldarelli at the wheel, although Aida is still being displayed at the moment in the number 5 car on our timing screen.
Johnny Molam climbs out of the car, the 25 car, so the car is scored in the lead for a lap. Ivor Dunbar will climb aboard.
So down the pit lane goes Alexei Basov, goes the Scheitar now driven SMP Racing Ferrari. Flicked up a bit of bodywork there, it looked like. Hopefully that's not going to cause an issue for one of these new Michelin tyres. And Ewan Hankey trying to work out just how much grip is available on the exit of that corner. So Sally Yolok, that's a former drive for the number 34 car. Now Ewan Hankey has skipped ahead during the stops. Yes, yeah, indeed. So Klaus Beckler is now behind the Aston Martin due to a better stop for the Aston crew. Tom Ferrier's well-rehearsed team did a 2:03 and the Porsche was in the pit lane for a 2:02, so I'm not quite sure how that's happened, but there has been a change after the stops with the Aston now in front.
Because I think that's going to be because Johnny Molam pushed on for that lap. Sorry, not Johnny Molam, apologies. I really don't know how that's happened. But
Klaus Beckler makes quick work of it anyway to get by Ewan Hankey. And Hankey tried to defend that into Rauch corner, but he was not going to hold the local boy back. This man, of course, racing on home turf. And, well, he was asked by Charlie George whether he likes this circuit. Kept his powder relatively dry, really. He says, yeah, well, I am Austrian, I probably should like this. I think he really loves it, because this outlap is phenomenal. Wow. Another look, by the way, at the number 25 Ferrari, and crucially in the front left corner. The team may have addressed that loose dive plane. They may have been happy with it. Over the line then comes Victor Scheitar, having taken over the number 72 Ferrari. And in the distance, Klaus Beckler. What can Klaus do? Headlights ablaze for the second place car. The third place Aston not very far away. And heading then out of turn number 1 comes the young Austrian. Feeding back into the mix is Ivor Dunbar. And that car is on the same lap, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Back out in the 4th. It was scored in the lead at the start of that lap.
Of course it was.
So this is a real world 4th position now for Ivor Dunbar.
So Dunbar working his way now through Remus corner. He'll be struggling to lay the power down out of that second turn, but running in 4th position then, behind Ewan Hankey, behind Klaus Beckler and behind Victor Scheitar. Francesco Castellacci is in 5th position, having taken the 51 Ferrari over from Thomas Fleur. And was his contact with the barrier? Yes, it was, on the pit lane exit. Now, the marshals were out there sweeping quite a lot of gravel up.
That's why.
Is that the reason why the Lamborghini could not turn in, and the car is stopped actually on the circuit? The car is stopped on the circuit for the number 5 machine, still showing Tayu Aida at the wheel, but I reckon that's Caldarelli, who just could not get that car turned at the end of the pit lane. And for both cars, they've destroyed the front left corner of both the McLaren and the Lamborghini. Admittedly, the McLaren incident was no way their fault, but Caldarelli just turned in at the usual point where he would expect the grip to come, and the car skates off because of all the gravel there and into the barrier.
Well, I think the gravel actually came from the Lamborghini.
It was shaken from it.
I think it was shaken from the Lamborghini. I do wonder, we've seen before where you get a bit of gravel stuck in a brake disc and a brake caliper. Wonder whether or not it was something to do with the steering.
The marshals were out there desperately trying to sweep all the excessive gravel away, so maybe so. Some news though from the pit lane and Charlie George.
Yes, I'm here with Johnny Molan. Johnny, that was somewhat eventful, not the Sunday drive you might have been hoping for.
No, you can say that again. Everyone was saying to me, because we chose to go slightly different strategy to everyone else, because with Ivor I'm trying to give him a car a little ways up there, and I think he operates better like that in terms of having to mix it with the cars at the beginning. And everyone was saying, yeah, Matt Griffin came up, yeah, I'm looking for you to be, leading after 2 laps, whatever. But I mean, some of the guys out there are very, very quick, and Basov in particular was quick. But going into first corner, trying to keep out of trouble, and literally there's a car in front of me, he just moved to the right, and there was a car literally head on. I nearly missed him. I mean, it must have been like an inch, and just banged the left front, damaged the bodywork, but also it bent the steering slightly, so that I had quite a big vibration. So from that moment in, we pitted, made sure it was safe. And then I just went out and drove as hard as I could all the time. I think I was quicker than everyone except the leader, almost just about matching him. And then we had the safety car, caught us right back up. Pitted in second legitimately, and then obviously I think Basov pitted 1 lap before us. But we'll see what happens now. The important thing is that Ivor Dunbar enjoys it and we keep the car in one piece.
Well done for remembering all that, one for one. A big accident for you recently. Is all okay now?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I had a bit of quite a bad sort of man flu situation going on before then, and then I think because I got quite bad bruising and my lungs got bruised, and then I developed a chest infection. So I raced at Mosport last weekend with the same car, the Bar 1 Motorsport team, brilliant to fix it, because it was a 170 mile an hour impact in a straight line when I got turned around on the straight at Watkins. So I'm not feeling 100%, but when I'm in the car I don't think about it, and I'm absolutely fine apart from a little bit of a chest infection.
Thanks very much, Johnny.
Thank you.
Made of stern stuff, Johnny Molan, and that was proven at the 6 Hours of the Glen a few weekends ago, as he says. But good to hear that he's on the mend and clearly not lost any of his pace this weekend. Ivor Dunbar now at the wheel of the number 25 Ferrari, and it's just lost 4th position to Francesco Castellacci in the silver number 51 Ferrari.
I've noticed though good work at the pit stop by the DFF racing crew. They have fixed that front dive plane on the left hand side. So within that pit stop they did manage to effect a repair. Ivor Dunbar that now though is being caught pretty rapidly as well by Nigel Moore. So we'll keep an eye on Ivor's times. It's a good theory from them to actually get him in the mix and get him racing. We'd noted through the free practice and qualifying that Ivor's times, whilst not at the sharp end of the bronze drivers here, we wouldn't expect that. It's a relatively new addition to the pack, but we're improving. Be interesting to see what happens now during the race. Klaus Bachler, meanwhile, is catching the leader.
I thought he might be somehow. Yes, he has come out like a man possessed from the pit lane. Certainly was not hanging around on the outlap, and Victor Scheitar in about another 15 minutes or so could be under an awful lot of pressure. 4.8 seconds is the gap. He did Klaus Bachler 0.2 of a second on Victor Scheitar, and Klaus, remember, is a gold graded driver, and he's up against Victor Scheitar, who is a silver, but actually similar pace offered by both Basov and Victor Scheitar. So across the piece you could say that SMP Racing a slightly better place, but Klaus Bachler, I think, a little bit frustrated that he didn't get in the car at Imola, will be really revved up here to try and close in on the race leader. And don't discount Ewan Hankey. TF Sport came here as championship leaders, albeit by a point. Could be on for another podium. A good stint again from Sally Yoluk. It's been a stop-start affair, his career, and he's been known in the UK for having some quite big accidents in the British GT Championship, but he has stamped that well and truly out of his of his portfolio, it would seem, in recent times, and has a cracking 2016 season up until this point. Ewan Hankey has been helping him along for the last probably 3 or 4 years, and the duo come to Red Bull Ring, as I say, well placed in the championship. So 3rd position for Hankey. Klaus Bechler, though, in 2nd. Did the gap come down again on that lap? Yes, it did, by 0.3 of a second.
That's all he needs to do at this stage, is just keep the pressure on. Keep the pressure on. Ewan Hankey, in fact, just slightly caught Bachler as well. So these 3 cars are getting closer together as a trio.
Ferrari, Porsche, Aston, and then another Ferrari in 4th position, Francesco Castellacci, who is managing to pedal that car quicker than it's done all race, a 1:30.4, which isn't too far away from the pace being shown by Bechler and by Ewan Hankey. So he's unlikely to catch those cars, but can consistently run in 4th. He's got ahead of Ivor Dunbar, and so too actually is Nigel Moore now in the number 19 Audi. So Nigel up to 5th position, Dunbar slips to 6th. Aida, we know, no longer in the race, and sadly the ailing number 14 Ferrari of Adrian Delina now. They did that driver change, but it's been in the pits 6 times. Admittedly, one of those was behind the safety car when the train was guided into the pit lane rather than run into an affected area at turn 1, where there was potentially a lot of gravel and also body parts for carbon fibre, but also a little bit of suspension mechanics as well, which you don't want in a tyre. So Eduardo Freitas, the race director, deciding to take the field through the pit lane instead. A message on the screen which pales into insignificance really about car number 5 and the pit stop under investigation, because the car no longer in the race. It stopped out on the circuit.
It's how much worse can their day get, really, isn't it? You say about the 14 could come away here conceivably if it can run trouble free to the end, with 7th place at worst. And it's a points battle here, so...
Yes, it's. I mean, that's indicative of how important it is to just keep plodding on, racing round, and
but not at competitive pace, it is fair to say.
Yeah, but hope that some element of the race will come towards you, and as you say, 7th place points not to be sniffed at in a cup that will continue on for a further 3 rounds. Important to score well across all 6 races and just see where you end up in the championship.
Man on the move in terms of pace at the moment. The last time around was Ewan Hankey, and he's taken 2 or 3 tenths out of Klaus Bachler again. Continues to do so. So top 3 separated by 6.5 seconds as they come round to complete lap 42.
Ewan Hankey, quicker than he's managed, or the car has managed previous time around, and not very far off that lap for the 42nd time as well, a 1:30.3 for Ewan. Tremendous consistency though being shown by the 4 guys out front. They're all in the 1:30s, and it's like a 1:33.3 and then a 0.4 maybe on the next lap, back to a 0.3. This is why these guys are professional racing drivers.
I'm going to take a guess at what's happened here with the number 5 car.
Go on.
And I'm going to take a guess that he didn't have his belt stood up properly, and that's what caused the issue. That's why we're now getting a message on the screen that says car 5 team manager the stewards immediately.
Wow, okay.
I wonder whether or not that is part of it, that distracted by whatever was happening in the car is what caused the issue at pit exit.
That might not be a bad idea actually. So trying to wrestle the belts, wrench them down to make sure that you're safely in the car, and then forget to brake, or brake later than you should do, up towards the, not quite turn 1, of course it's the pit lane turn 1 if you like. It is a sharp right hand corner there.
We didn't see the 5 car leave its pit box.
No.
So we don't know whether or not that is what's actually it was talking about the unsafe release. So was it unsafe release in terms of the manner of the car leaving its pit box, or was it the state in which the car or the driver was in at that point?
No doubt we will find out in due course. Not sure whether that will be displayed on our timing screen, but post-race it will be something to try and find out with Triple F Racing.
Maybe significant that actually that was the quickest of the pit stops. 2:01, it was quicker.
Yes, okay. And running it very close to the minimum pit stop time. Andrea Caldarelli will have been well and truly revved up to try and get that car back into the top 5, certainly back into the equation as far as points are concerned. Very unusual incident that though, with Caldarelli presumably at the wheel, by the way. AIDA was displayed, and I'm assuming that was just an error with the dial which identifies the drivers inside the car. Surely the pit stop infringement wasn't the fact that they didn't change drivers.
You would hope not.
45 minutes to go, and Francesco Castellacci in the number 51 Ferrari, the 488, powers its way out of Rauch corner. Victor Scheitar leads the motor race though, with an hour and 15 minutes gone. Again, great consistency being shown by certainly all 4 drivers, but good pace being found by Beckler, Hankey and Castellacci, all going quicker than they've managed so far, than their relevant cars have managed in the race. And is the gap, Graham, closing between 3rd and 4th now?
It is a little. That's just a little bit of a positive on an otherwise negative day for the 14 Ferrari crew. Delena takes one of its laps back from Ivor Dunbar. But yeah, what we're getting here is Castellacci is catching certainly the 2nd place Porsche. Hankey is catching the 2nd place Porsche from 3rd, and is also catching the leader marginally. There's very good pace indeed in the top 4 cars at the moment.
Adrian Delena though showing that they of course have done a good job. It might be a quick fix to try and get that car back to competitive pace, but Adrian Delena having a bit more joy than Pierre-Marie managed. 1:32.2 is a respectable time in that number 14 Ferrari, so fingers crossed that they of course can nurse it to the finish and get some, well, try and rescue some points, which may be all important come the end of the season. There is Victor Scheitar running a bit off the track there, all 4 wheels clear of the white line but over the curb, and again all 4 wheels off through that right-hander as well. So that shows just how hard he's pushing, feeling the pressure perhaps from Klaus Beckler and Ewan Hankey, who's now gone quicker than anyone through sector 2. So the Aston Martin getting into its stride. Ewan Hankey, you can argue, has been a little bit slow to get up to full speed in this stint, but he's there now, well and truly in the rhythm. 1.3 seconds is the gap then between Hankey and Klaus Beckler. Beckler was very keen indeed to get past the Aston Martin. Of course, the Aston was on cold tyres at the time. Now Hankey powers his way out of turn number 1, getting the gap down, as I say, to just over a second. Francesco Castellacci quicker than the 2 cars up ahead of him. The problem is he's got 12 seconds to try and find on Ewan Hankey and Klaus Beckler, and may just run out of laps. 43 minutes to go of this 3rd round of the season for the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup then. And the Mentos Racing Porsche works its way down to Rauch corner for the 46th time. Klaus Beckler with 5.3 seconds to try and find on the race leader, but Victor Scheitar is responding to the times that Beckler were putting in the early part of the stint. Heading through Pirelli corner now is the Austrian, and right behind him British driver Ewan Hankey
is much quicker.
He was quicker through sector 1. Sorry, slightly slower than through sector 1, but he was half a second quicker through sector 2.
So the picture at the moment is Hankey catching Beckler and catching the leader. So the lead gap, 1st to 3rd, is down to 6.7 seconds now. And Hankey is just 1.4 seconds off Klaus Beckler.
Over the line goes the Aston Martin, and 7.2 seconds away from the race leader. But the gap is coming down between he and Klaus Beckler. Found about 1/10 of a second on him that time around.
It really is very even stuff, isn't it? Across the full lap between the top 4.
Phenomenal stuff. They're always in the 130s, and it's been interesting to watch generally the times come down from 130.5 to 0.4, and now pretty much all 4 drivers are posting 130.2s. In fact, the race leader 130.1 for Scheitar, 30.121 on lap 46. There is the race leader then, heading up towards Pirelli corner now. Headlights certainly pick these cars out in the increasing gloom. Still no hint of that precipitation that was threatened at the start of the race. 50% chance of some rainfall. But it looks like we might just get away with it and complete this event in dry conditions. Still a full 40 minutes though to go. Victor Scheitar leads from Klaus Beckler. Let's get another update though from the pit lane and Charlie George.
Yeah, I'm down here with Sally Yoluk. Sally, that really was an eventful stint for you, and it looks like a couple of bits of contact as well.
Yeah, to turn one, we got a bit lucky with the contact in front of us. But after that, the second safety car, just mixed it up a little bit for us because I was starting to put some gap to the Porsche. It got all of us together again, and he just passed me with his experience. So, but it was okay, I think.
And this is your first time racing at Red Bull Ring. What do you make of the circuit?
It's okay. It's a bit hard. We've struggled a little bit on the free practice sessions yesterday. It's only today we found some more pace, but I think after this race it would be better for the next time we come here. So it's not the maximum, I think.
Thank you very much, Sally.
Yeah, that really tells you that that your second time at a circuit can be so much further on. You haven't got all that preliminary work to do. You haven't got to learn the track. You can do some of that, I suppose, before your first visit on a simulator, but you're just so much further on in terms of setup and experience on your second visit to a track. And I think Sally Yoluk will enjoy, if he sticks with the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup, and assuming the calendar is the same as last year or similar to it, then he'll really enjoy visiting places on the second occasion.
And certainly from some of the teams in the European Le Mans Series who have been here and drivers who've driven here before, saying that yes, they've got reference points about this track. Obviously they know which way the corners go, but because the track has been resurfaced, a lot of the tiny little bits of data you retain are now done. You've got to really relearn this to find out where the best grip is, where the best lines are with this resurfaced track. And Ewan Hankey, I think he's getting his head around this because he's providing a stern challenge here for Klaus Beckler.
Yes, they have had quite a bit of running already this weekend, of course. 2 free practice sessions yesterday, and then the qualifying session earlier on today as well, but not a lot of turnaround time between qualifying this morning and the race this afternoon. That's the beauty of the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup, a little bit how the European Le Mans Series ran last year, in that you got qualifying and the race on the same day. ELMS is a longer weekend for 2016, with free practice starting on the Friday afternoon, another free practice session in the morning, and then qualifying just after lunch for the ELMS cars, followed by a 4-hour race on Sundays. But it's a more compact schedule for these cars, but that means that things stay in the memory, I suppose, from qualifying in the 2-session format within that. Everybody out in the first session, and then the top 10 go into Super Pole for the second 15 minutes. It was entertaining stuff earlier on today. And this is the race proper now, with a little over 35 minutes still to go. They're down in the 129s now, by the way. Victor Scheitar certainly is. We're waiting to see whether Klaus Beckler can get close to that. Well, he's just done the car's best lap of the race, a 1:30.2. Ewan Hankey is 1.4 seconds off the rear wing, as Hankey then heads into turn number 1, 1:30.6. So the pace has dropped very slightly away from the 0.3s that we have seen in recent times.
2.4. Unfortunately, it's
my maths is totally out today. 2.4 seconds, you did right.
But lap by lap, what we're seeing is Klaus Beckler will bung in a really quick one for that car. And as Johnny says, 1:30.2 is the best we've seen from the Porsche this time. Might get a lap where Ewan Hankey maybe drops 2 or 3 tenths, but then he'll punch back. And all the while that's happening, a little way further back down the road, Francesco Castellacci is trying his level best to catch these guys. And he's the one at the moment that of the 3 chasing cars that appears able to put in the sub 1:30 times. He's done it at least once, but he's struggling to crack that 19-second gap to the leader.
Yeah, matching the guys in front, but just can't find the extra tenth that would bring that gap down, I suppose. It's a big margin, always going to be a big margin to try and home in on. Nigel Moore still out there, by the way, in the number 19 Audi, running in 5th position, and Ivor Dunbar in 6th, ahead of Adrian Delina. car way off the pace in terms of laps completed, but Adrian Delina is down in the 131, so it's going quickly. The problem is that it can't be in with a shout of a top 5 finish any longer, being 15 laps off the pace. Over the line goes Francesco Castellacci in 4th position, as Graham says, nearly 20 seconds behind Victor Scheitar in a similar Ferrari 488. Out of turn 1 then goes the silver and red machine run by AF Corsa for Castellacci. 50 laps done and dusted, by the way, for Victor Scheitar now, so a bit of a landmark hit there, well over half distance, almost 3/4 distance in fact. Another 5 minutes and we'll be there, and 6.3 seconds is the gap from Scheitar back to Klaus Beckler. 3rd position Ewan Hankey, 4th is Castellacci, 5th position Nigel Moore, and 6th place Ivor Dunbar. There is Nigel. Philip Hansen, an impressive stint for him, and the team from Yorkshire are continually learning this car and also how to race well in the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup.
And looking for the next step on the ladder, and for them it will be LMP3. They are the proud recipients of a new Ligier JSP3 that they plan to race in the soon-to-be-launched British Series, and my guess would be that we might see next year, possibly the year after, Topwith Motorsport look to step up into LMP3 in the European Le Mans Series, and that's what this series is all about. It's a feeder series for ACO Rules Racing, whether it be in GT cars or in prototypes, and clearly young Philip Hansen is targeting that as a career move for himself up the order. This provides a great framework to learn your trade, to learn these circuits, which, as you said earlier, Johnny, you're absolutely right, is a very key part of this. It's not just the car, it's not just unlocking that potential, it's learning to race on these circuits that when it gets to the really tough stuff, the mixed class sports car racing that clearly a lot of these gentlemen drivers have got targeted, they've got a better knowledge bank to build upon, and Philip Hansen has impressed me this weekend.
Ewan Hankey going quicker again than anyone's managed through Sector 1. Can he back that up with a further purple sector on this lap, I wonder? Car 34 then running in 3rd position.
And the Aston Martin, by the way, now holds the fastest sector times for sectors 1 and 2. Not on the same lap, but the potential time is there in that car. And he does the same in sector 2.
Wow. So he is really managing to find some good speed in that Aston Martin now. The car continually getting lighter, of course. They'll have fueled it for the full stint of Ewan Hankey, so they'll be running on the dregs towards the end of the stint, but presumably then it's starting to handle a little bit better with a slight bit of less weight on its wheels. The tyre wear, though, will be contributing potentially to a slower time, but a 1:29.887 rather is Ewan Hankey's best lap of the race, the car's best lap of the race, and that came from 2 absolute best sectors on that lap.
Victor Scheitar, meanwhile, puts a lap on the FF Corsa Ferrari. Ivor Dunbar's run for home continues.
Klaus Beckler going through Sector 1 quicker than that car's managed now as well, so we're still seeing improvements. And still, I think, for the teams, the threat of rain hangs above this circuit, because there are 1 or 2 wet weather tyres being prepared just in case it goes a little wrong towards the end of this race and the rain starts to fall. But as I say, that threat's been there for much of the day. We've seen no rainfall to this point. There was a 50% chance of precipitation at the start of the 2 hours. You never know quite what the racing gods will throw at you. So all precautions being taken down in the pit lane.
But for a moment, I think at the start, this current lap for Ewan Hankey dropped a little bit of time to the lead pair there, but has punched back in the middle sector. This is shaping up potentially to be quite a close finish.
Times are tumbling here, there and everywhere. Victor Scheitar slower again than Klaus Beckler. He only lost a couple of tenths,
but he had to overtake Ivor Dunbar on that lap.
That's true. So 5.8 seconds is the gap, but we're looking more interestingly at Ewan Hankey. A slightly slower lap that time around though for the Brit, but nevertheless he's showing great speed in the Aston Martin. Here is Klaus Beckler putting another lap on Ivor Dunbar into turn number 2, taking plenty of curb on the exit of Remus, and he'll head now down the hill towards Rauch Corner for the 54th time. We are homing in on just 30 minutes of this race to go, and it will be 30 minutes as opposed to the Renault races that happened a bit earlier on today, which you have an extra lap tagged onto the race distance. As soon as the lead car heads across the line with the clock reading 0, that is the end of the race. Klaus Beckler charging his way then out of Pirelli Corner and into Wörth. Still taking plenty of curb in places, and the Aston Martin almost bottoming out there on the exit of Wörth Corner. Just looked a bit more aggressive, did the body language of the Vantage compared to the 991 GT3 car, although way off the track there goes Klaus Beckler and out of the final corner. So 30 minutes to go. Who's your money on? Victor Scheitar, who leads the race, 6.4 seconds now the gap, so that was a really good lap from Scheitar and not particularly special one from Beckler, so it's opened the gap up a little bit. 6.4 seconds, as I say, the margin for the Russian race leader. Ewan Hankey is in 3rd position, Francesco Castellacci in 4th, and he's actually the quickest of the top 4 right now.
The last lap from the 2nd and 3rd place cars, 1:30.645 from Klaus Beckler, 1:30.646 from Ewan Hankey. So there's consistency between the Porsche and the Aston Martin across a full lap. You're absolutely right, Johnny, 7 tenths quicker than that last time around, but still has not broken the 19-second bogey from the leader is Francesco Castellacci, and he must be getting quite frustrated here. He's driving the wheels off that Ferrari. He cannot close in on the cars ahead of him.
And even the car immediately ahead of him is 10 seconds away. That's 9 seconds to 19 seconds, definitely 10 seconds.
Definitely
I can do that calculation. And Castellacci then, it must be so frustrating for him to be putting in good lap times, but he just cannot get anywhere near to the 3 cars up the road from him.
But that's a mark of the consistency that the top 3 are actually showing in this phase of the race. What's going to be interesting now as we get into this final half hour, as the fuel load comes off, as the tyres get more worn, which can show more consistency across the hour. You've got the mid-engined Ferraris, you've got the front-engined Aston Martin, the rear-engined Porsche. It's getting cooler out there. We could see this swing in one way. Will it swing to the extent of the gaps we've got now? 6.4 seconds first to second, a further 2.5 seconds back to Ewan Hankey, a further 10 seconds back for Castellacci. Well, that remains to be seen.
1:30.1 for the race leader, 1:30.1 for the 2nd place car Beckler, 1:30.1 for the 3rd place car Ewan Hankey, and 1:30.2, which ruins the pattern there, from Francesco Castellacci. But that's the kind of consistency we're talking about, and they're doing this lap after lap. It's phenomenal stuff. Nigel Moore not very far away, having just done a 1:30.8 in the Audi, but he is a further 20 seconds adrift of Francesco Castellacci as Beckler works his way out of Rauch Corner. The car launches forward onto its front wheels as it brakes then for Pirelli Corner, and then heading into the 2nd left-hander at Wörth. Aston Martin in 3rd position. Gap is 2.4 seconds between Beckler and Ewan Hankey. Castellacci with his best first sector of the lap. It was a personal best lap time for Klaus Beckler last time around, a 1:30.1, and he's gone even quicker. In fact, he matches Victor Scheitar's lap time to the thousandth. So we've made the emphasis here about the fact that these guys are consistent. Well, both Scheitar and Beckler do a 1:30.083 on lap 56 of the race, and Ewan Hankey was only, 0.06 of a second quicker than that as well.
Staggering stuff.
These lap times are getting closer to one another. sadly at the moment what we don't have is, as a result, cars getting closer to one another because they're all doing exactly the same lap time.
But this is, I mean, more than anything else, we talk about professional racing drivers and their speed. Of course, that's the game. But actually, much more than that, and particularly in endurance racing, it's consistency. It is about consistency. It's about managing to punch these lap times out, lap after lap after lap, through a whole stint, through an hour, through a double stint. And this is what these guys do. And this is something, it's so difficult to produce that level of consistency to the 10th, to the 100th, to the 1000th, and yet time after time after time these guys do it. 25 minutes remain.
Victor Scheitar at the penultimate corner. He ran very wide there and caught with his left side tyres the corrugated yellow sausage curbs, so that will have unsettled the car and potentially going to do damage as well to suspension bits, possibly tyre wear too. Also plenty of the sausage curb caught there on the exit of turn 1 as well. So powers his way up the hill. Of course, the result of clobbering those curves may not be felt immediately, but it'll be later on in his stint that the vibration really makes itself felt.
Into the 129s again for Scheitar and for Hankey, taking a couple of tenths out of Klaus Bachler last time. 8.9 seconds the gap between the top three. And they are beginning to pull away a little from Francesco Castellacci, who can't match this ultimate pace at the moment. It's only tenths in it, but it's consistent tenths, and it's made the difference between that gap now being 19 seconds to the leader and 20.
Adrian Delina has managed to take the number 14 car around the Red Bull circuit quicker than it's managed all race. A 1:31.1 is a respectable time.
That's Nigel Moore pace at the moment.
Indeed, it is, yeah. And Nigel running in 5th. Ivor Dunbar is in 6th in the 1:35s. There is a chance then that Adrian Delina might get a further lap back on Ivor Dunbar at least. But the problem for Adrian is that he is 14 laps away from race leader Victor Scheitar, and therefore the other 4 cars on the lead lap.
That's another very quick time from Scheitar into the 129.5 now. So just a tenth and a half away from the fastest lap of the race. Into the 129s this time for Bachler, and that's pace this time that Ewan Hankey can't manage.
So 29.5 for the race leader, a 129.9 for Bachler, and Ewan Hankey still in the 30s as Graham mentions, and Victor Scheitar could be on for further improvement here with a purple time through sector 1. As Diego Meyer in one of the Renault races described, though, sector 1 here at Red Bull Ring includes one corner effectively, but it's quite an important corner. Turn number 1 determines your optimum speed at the top of the hill as you cross the sector beam just before turn-in at sector 2. So Scheitar, we know, was quick up the hill there.
To give you an idea, just the tolerances we're talking here, sector 1 last time through for the 4 leading cars, 22.755 seconds for Scheitar, 22.761 seconds, 6 thousandths out from that for Ewan Hankey, 22.756, 1 thousandth of a second different for Francesco Castellacci.
Incredible stuff. More purple times coming through. Ewan Hankey now quicker than anybody else through sector 2. So we've got a purple time at sector 1 for Scheitar, a purple time sector 2 for Ewan Hankey. World Class Bachler, therefore, that'd be the quickest time so far through sector 3 to complete the set. Over the line he will go in a moment, sadly not for OCD people like me, but nevertheless it's a good time for Ewan Hankey, 129.675 for Ewan Hankey in the number 34 Aston. So he's found some ground on Klaus Bachler, 4 tenths there or thereabouts, and a very good time from Castellacci as well, although it's not quicker than Ewan Hankey. So the gap is still, well, a little over 10 seconds now. Back to Castellacci in 4th position. Ewan Hankey is closing the gap to Klaus Bachler. There it is, in fact, on track.
That's the gap that looks most likely to produce a potential positional change at this stage.
I would agree with that.
Hankey does seem to be able to pull those laps out the bag more often than Bachler does.
Here is Francesco Castellacci. The car started by Thomas Fleur, who did a good job. And Italian driver now taking it to the flag. Sadly, at the moment, Francesco with nobody to play with in 4th position. Looks in the mirror, can't see anybody. Looks ahead, can't see anybody. Wonders if there's anybody else in this race. There definitely is. The top 3 are again having a bit of fun here. We're seeing more purple times, Graham.
And it's fastest first sector for the 72 car. Looks pretty much away and clear at this stage, but Ewan Hankey takes another 4/10 out of Klaus Bachler. And down to 1.5 seconds. Scheitar follows that one up, by the way, with a 27.1 in the final sector. That is 100th of a second outside the fastest lap of the race, so 29.442. But it's 4/10 to the good that time around. Second to third, Ewan Hankey catching Klaus Bachler again. It is 1.7 seconds is the gap.
So Scheitar, purple through sector 1, purple through sector 3, so must have been snail-like through sector 2 to not get the fastest lap and beat his own time, 129.432. As Graham says, that was set on lap 33, and we're now at lap 60 with 20 and a half minutes to go of the 3rd round of the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup for 2016. Round still to come at Paul Ricard, at Spa-Francorchamps and at Estoril in Portugal to complete the season of this inaugural cup, and designed entirely to get interest for the main championship, I suppose, the European Le Mans Series. This is what was GTC in ELMS in 2016. We have had improvements in terms of the entry from GTC through to Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup. We had about 5 cars regularly turning up for the ELMS in GTC last year. Well, that's been doubled, and certainly a chance of us having 12 cars at Paul Ricard, if not more, at the end of August.
29.5 this time around, 129.5 from Scheitar. The answer to that challenge is a 130 dead from Bachler. Hankey was up in the first 2 sectors, but dropped back a little more again. It's 1.8 seconds is the gap between second and third position.
Yeah.
The question is, can he find something in this last 20 minutes of the race?
We have been close to 1.8 seconds, I think, before for Hankey, getting close to Bachler. Is it the case that Bachler could up the pace should he need to? He's comfortable at this sort of speed, but if it came to a battle, could Bachler actually see off Ewan Hankey? Not easily, but with a little bit of control. Hankey has had some time to think about this, of course. He's charging so hard here to close in on this Porsche and give himself a chance of second place points. This was all set up nicely for Ewan after a great stint from Sally Yoluk. Kind of gifted second position back again after Egidio Perfetti spun the car out of turn 7. It was the Porsche, of course, that Perfetti was at the wheel of. The car pirouetting once. He found first gear very quickly, rejoined the race, but lost second place to that Aston Martin. And this battle really between the Porsche and the Aston has been the story of the race so far, together with the dominance of SMP Racing and Alexei Basov's stint particularly, but ably supported by Victor Scheitar. Scheitar now enjoying an 8.7 second lead over Klaus Bachler. And the biggest question mark is what order these 2 cars in shot now are going to finish in. Will it be Porsche ahead of Aston or Aston ahead of Porsche come the podium? Francesco Castellacci is 11 seconds now adrift of Ewan Hankey, but in no danger of losing 4th place to Nigel Moore, who remains on the lead lap. He's in the 3rd sector at the moment, completing, or soon to complete, his 62nd lap, and that's the best lap actually of Nigel Moore's race so far in the number 19 Audi. Is this as a result of running wide, or is that a replay to show us the sparks from the front left corner of the splitter? Yes, indeed it was. I'd seen a hint of sparks from that Audi earlier on in the race, but nothing to that extent, as that compression part of the circuit, the car bottoming out and the splitter scraping the ground briefly. So ride height might be a little bit of a concern for Top With Motorsports come the end of the race. Philip Hansen, though, really impressed in his opening stint, and hands over to Nigel Moore, who we know from his successes in Ginetta racing in the past and more so GT racing of recent times. Has impressive speed, as do other members of his family as well. Ooh. Sarah Moore, his sister, very, very quick, but a sideways moment there.
Big wiggle.
For Nigel, yeah, that will have grabbed the attention.
Maybe enjoyed that, actually.
Maybe an indication that these Michelin tyres are getting through their lifespan now and will have seen better days, certainly, after nearly 45 minutes of running at unabated speed. There is Alexei Basov, by the way, deep in conversation with the team. Not looking quite as relaxed as I expected he would do, but Victor Scheitar, a good pair of hands to have behind the wheel of your Ferrari 488, and that is Boris Rottenberg, is it?
No, that's Sergei Zlobin. That's the background there. That is Marta Ferrari, of course, Sergei Zlobin, the inaugural LMP2 champion. The FIWC for SMP Racing now handles the commercial side of the racing, GT racing side of SMP. You do a deal to race with SMP, you do it with Sergei Zlobin, and believe you me, he's got a crushing handshake.
The Ferrari, I noticed there, generating a bit of sparks as well into the penultimate corner. Boris, Sergei Zlobin is quick on the phone there, maybe filling out another deal for the next meeting.
Trying to get me sorted out somehow. But 1:29.2 now, the fastest lap of the race goes to Victor Scheitar on his lap 64. And he does that without setting a purple sector in any of the 3 sectors.
So out of turn 1 he goes, and yeah, one of those quirky laps which actually wasn't better than other cars have managed in this race, but across the piece it was the best lap of anyone so far, a 1:29.271. Again, that's a model of consistency, I suppose. There's some dust up ahead of the Aston there, and is that the Ferrari?
That's Ivor Dunbar. Oh no, that is the Ferrari.
That is the lead Ferrari, which
is not 10 seconds ahead.
It's lost time. Yeah, there was smoke, there was dust ahead of the Porsche and of the Aston. So I reckon Victor Scheitar's been off and run wide at turn 2. Now there's no gravel trap there as such. Did he go way into the corner? Yes, he has.
He's been through the gravel. Well spotted.
That's not a gravel trap, I don't think. Or maybe it is on the... Yes, okay, but there is space initially for you to run off, because that's where the clash happened in the Formula 1 race a couple of weekends ago. And so...
3 seconds the gap. 3 seconds is the gap.
All of a sudden, very, very interesting indeed, as Victor Scheitar makes an error at the top of the hill at turn 2. He found the gravel, and that was the dust in the air as the second and third place cars worked their way through. And this will reignite the fire, will it not, in the belly of both Klaus Bachler and Ewan Hankey, with only 13.5 minutes to go.
Well, all of a sudden, all bets are off, and what damage, if any, as the Delena Ferrari leaves the pit lane again for the 7th time. What damage, if anything, is that done to the tyres of the Ferrari? It's a quick final sector time from Scheitar, so it doesn't appear to have done any major lasting damage. Very quick time meanwhile by Castellacci. Still 10 seconds back from Hankey, but now of course closer to the leader. 15 seconds is the gap.
Well, that might have called Sergei Zlobin's phone call to a halt pretty quickly, I would imagine. Got the heartbeat racing at SMP Racing.
It'll teach him to call his driver while he's trying to concentrate, isn't it? Phones and driving don't mix.
Maybe it was just a quick call to Victor. Do you fancy fish and chips for tea tonight as a celebration? Oh, I'm off the track. Hang on a minute. I'm back on again. And thankfully, because of that 10-second lead, were it not for such an advantage, then that really would have meant a disaster for the race. But it's brought Klaus Bachler and Ewan Hankey back into the equation. Depends how quickly Victor Scheitar can get the level head back again, and it was interesting to see him back into turn 2 a lap later, braking just as meanly as he did previously in the race. Certainly wasn't taking it easy there. Maybe just a lapse of concentration into Rima's corner.
Well, it's all on you at this stage of the race.
Indeed it is.
Fastest third sector of the race though for the number 72 shows there doesn't appear to be any lasting damage. 1:29.532. It's not far off the fastest lap of the race either, and is quicker than both the chasing cars. All now the top 4 into the 1:29s as the fuel load comes right down. 5.6 seconds between first and third positions now.
Victor Scheitar is the driver that needs to perform in the remaining 11.5 minutes to the flag, and the headlights ablaze in the distance there. Beckler and Hankey, we were concentrating on the gap between the Porsche and the Aston Martin. I think realistically that gap between the Ferrari and the Porsche is starting to grow again, although there's a slight question mark hovering above the 488 as regards to its tyres and whether it caught a nasty piece of gravel there which could have created a slow puncture, but that would need to manifest itself pretty quickly here to cause an issue for Victor Scheitar and then give the race back towards, or swing the pendulum in the direction of Klaus Beckler and of Ewan Hankey, who now heads over the rise there underneath the Wirth Bridge and into Rindt Corner. 10.5 minutes to go. Beckler showed great pace on the previous lap, 129.838. The end of lap 67. It doesn't improve. 4.3 seconds the gap then to Scheitar, race leader, and it is 1.5 seconds back, 4 seconds back to the Aston Martin.
1.5, apologies, you were right, I was wrong. Well, you know, it's lap after lap. It's been, well, 2 hours of this, but lap after lap, it's been taking tenths here, hundredths there. No sense whatsoever about there's no point in even attempting this. You've got to push.
And it's strange because if you'd asked me to suggest what the top three might have been by the end of the race, I probably would have given you these three cars, but not in the way that we've reached it. Because the first stint displayed so much unpredictable nature of the race, I suppose, and I didn't quite think, or maybe that the McLaren I would have included in the mix as well, and it was a real shame to lose that very early on at the first corner. And Hiroshi Hamaguchi, of course, didn't get a chance to show his true pace. Adrian Quaife-Hobbs, a thought for him as well, who didn't get in the car in the race. And Triple F Racing, just a nightmare for them, with both cars out
and damaged
as well. And that's not the first time that the Lamborghini will have needed to be fixed this year after a big shunt at Imola a couple of months ago. 9 minutes to go then.
And again, the battle that looks most likely as Nigel Moore goes up the inside of the Dalena Ferrari 458 is Ewan Hankey getting onto terms with the Porsche.
I noticed, by the way, and apologies if you already mentioned this, Pierre-Marie Dalena looks like he's back at the wheel.
Wow, no, I
the 14 car.
That. So they've changed him back in with the car, presumably having had a very frustrating first stint in the car. Now they've got the car running more reliably. It seems only fair, doesn't it?
It just gives the bronze driver more mileage, effectively, doesn't it? And with the car, sadly, with no chance of improving its position because it's so many laps down, it is on course for 7th place points. Can't fall any lower than that with the 3 retirements we've already had. So a chance to get Pierre-Marie Dalena back into the car to bring it to the flag. Francesco Castellacci now going quicker than anybody else through Sector 1. So the 51 Ferrari, again with nobody in front or behind really, a lonely race for both Thomas Fleur and Castellacci. Fleur had a bit more action in his opening stint.
Well, last time around, Johnny, the top 4, 3 of them in the 129.5, first, third and fourth position cars, against a 129.9 for Klaus Beckler. Still very, very quick, but has lost the ultimate edge a little there. This is a very quick lap indeed from Francesco Castellacci, by the way.
This gap between the Porsche and the Aston is definitely
right
coming down, isn't it? It's less than a second now. So heading through towards it's 0.7 of a second as they head over the line. And yeah, so Ewan Hankey applying the pressure here with 7.5 minutes to go on Klaus Beckler. We know Klaus is quick, but how well has he managed his tyres, I wonder? He was certainly pushing on in the first portion of his stint. Ewan Hankey has shown great pace, but has he nursed those tyres a bit more in the early stages and has got a bit more to lean on perhaps towards the end of this race?
2 very quick laps there from the first and fourth position cars. 129.387 I think is the second fastest lap of the race, and the third fastest lap of the race has come from Castellacci with a 129.4. But this is where the action's at. This could be very important indeed for TF Sports. The additional points available for second position look to be potentially within the grasp of Ewan Hankey, unless Klaus Beckler is playing a very close hand. I don't think so.
I don't think he is. I don't think this is a dangerous game to play for the Austrian if that is the case. The Aston just looks a bit more pointy, a bit more darty. Wherever Ewan Hankey steers this car, it seems to react far better than the Porsche does at this stage of the race. It wasn't the case earlier on, certainly. Porsche will obviously use its tyres in very different ways from the Aston Martin behind. Red hot front brake still for Ewan Hankey, who continues to push on.
Half
6 minutes to go.
Half a second is the gap, and they're coming down now to complete their lap 70.
0.550 of a second between Klaus Bachler for Mentos Racing. That car started by Giulio Perfetti, TF Sports Ewan Hankey, and that car co-driven by Saleh Yoluk, and you can bet that the man with the loudest voice is on the pit wall. Saleh Yoluk just willing Ewan Hankey on here to go one place better. They came here as championship leaders by a point, and remember that they have done one extra round than Victor Scheitar and Alexei Basov in the SMP Racing Ferrari, so still will be well placed in the championship after this round, but would dearly like the points for second place rather than third. Down the straight from turns 2 and 3 they go, and the Aston just looks far better planted into Rauch corner. Downhill approach, hard onto the brakes. Make sure your exit's good because it leads into a double left-hander, which is very quick indeed. Pirelli and Wirth corners. Plenty of curb being taken by Klaus Bachler. And Klaus, although a young man, has been driving professionally for a number of years now, so he won't let this pressure phase him. Of course, he'll only have a certain amount of pace that he can find now.
I'd say the last time around, this pair, their lap time was separated by 0.02 of a second. Bit of a wiggle there through the final turn from the 72 car. Seems to have it all in control. It's fastest third sector of the race, about to put another lap on Ivor Dunbar. That's a mark of the pace of the leading car here.
Yeah, it took plenty of curb through that final corner, so that will have helped him get the best sector 3 time of anybody.
0.7 of a second is the gap second to third.
0.7 of a second, and it has been now for a couple of laps after Ewan Hankey whittled it away. I think helped by maybe the odd error by Klaus Bachler. Out of Remus corner, Bachler needing to keep things neat and tidy now. 3 minutes and 50 seconds to go. Light starting to be flashed then by Ewan Hankey. That won't, of course, distract Klaus Bachler, but it's worth a go as the Vantage charges its way into Rauch corner. It is a tighter run through that corner then by the front engine machine. Hits the apex a little more cleanly than the Porsche up ahead. Pirelli corner. About a car width off the apex was Klaus Bachler. Again, a neater line from the Brit behind. But this is where the Porsche kind of comes into its own a little bit more. It shows good speed through Wirth, and then the right-hander that immediately follows it.
He's grabbing hundreds as Hankey in each of the sectors here. It's not enough at this stage.
No.
He needs to find a tenth or two
and
to
of
get
course,
that pressure.
Even if he can get close to the Porsche, he'll need to find a bit more than a tenth or two in an attempt to overtake. I would suggest there's some traffic here to be dealt with, though, up ahead as the race leader goes over the line to complete 72 laps for the 72 Ferrari.
It's exactly a tenth taken out of Klaus Bachler last time around by Ewan Hankey. It is just over 6/10 the gap. 2 minutes and 42 seconds to go.
Up the hill. Now, how easily will Ivor Dunbar be to lap? Ivor will sensibly, I think, try and stay off the racing line. Yes, he does. Plenty of blue flags being waved towards him. And he has seen the scrap coming through, so doesn't really delay Klaus Bachler or Ewan Hankey. They got through cleanly there, both past Delina and Dunbar. And down towards Rauch corner. He had a look, didn't he? Ewan Hankey looks far better into turn number 3. And then from kind of this point, well, after Pirelli corner, the Porsche is able to open up the gap a little bit, or at least keep the Aston at a safe distance.
Is that just a rehearsal for what might happen on the final lap here? Do or die stuff.
Well, there'll be this lap, and of course they're doing 90-second laps, so it'll be relatively close. If they can make the end of this lap within 20 seconds, we might squeeze an extra one out of this. 1 minute 40 to go. I reckon no, I think it'll be this lap and one more, won't it?
So Scheitar about to finish the lap now. He does so.
So we will get one more then.
Fastest lap of the race, meanwhile, goes to Francesco Castellacci, chasing away in 4th position still.
So 73 laps done. I reckon Scheitar will get round again before the clock reads 0, you know. So we're potentially on for a 75 lap race here, unless Scheitar gets the radio message that if you back off by about a second, we could potentially get the race win. But there's no sign that Scheitar is backing off, because he's just done his best time through sector 1. Up to Rima's corner then for what I reckon is the penultimate time. No indication that this is the final lap quite yet, with 1 minute and 31 seconds on the clock at the start of this lap, and Scheitar can get around the Red Bull ring in 2 seconds shy of that. Is this Ewan Hankey's opportunity at Rauch corner? Again, is a little bit of a look, but can't find the door open. It wasn't fully alongside or near enough to be close alongside to make that move, so it might be a final lap charge here for second position. Hankey into Pirelli corner, and the gap,
we are definitely going to go for another lap.
So one more lap will make it 75 in total. The gap at the split, 0.468 of a second between Beckler and Ewan Hankey. Over the rise they go, and down into Rindt corner. Meanwhile, the race leader way off the track that time. In fact, he got all 4 wheels clear of the curb, I would say, the wrong side of the white line. Over the line he goes with the new fastest lap of the race, but he did use quite a bit extra track there.
And did so with 5 seconds left on the clock. 1:29.062.
This is the last lap of the race. Big smile from Sergei Slobin, realising exactly what Victor Scheitar is doing, trying to make a point, quite possibly, that he is still finding speed. And let's hope that SMP Racing and the rest of the cars in this field have got enough fuel into the cars to see them complete 75 laps. The cars will be down to the dregs now in the tank, no doubt. There'll need to be enough to take a fuel sample by the scrutineer at the end of the race, but let's concentrate on this final circuit of the Red Bull Ring. All of a sudden the gap has opened up between Klaus Beckler and Ewan Hankey. Hankey good on the brakes into turn 3, we know, although about half a car off the apex at Rauch corner. I think this will just about decide a second place battle. For whatever reason, Ewan Hankey has lost a little bit of pace on this final lap. 22.9 through sector 1. Compare that to a 22.8 for Klaus Beckler, and it is much slower through sector 2 for Ewan Hankey's Aston Martin.
Has he got a fuel on? And another
that might have been commentator's
moment.
curse, saying let's hope they've got all the fuel in the car that is necessary for a 75 lap race. But let's take nothing away from SMP Racing. Alexei Basov and Victor Scheitar performing so well. 1 or 2 heart in the mouth moments, with the safety car no doubt coming out and really compressing the field up once again. Klaus Beckler coming home in second position in the end after a great opening stint from Egidio Perfetti. Thumbs up there from Alexei Basov, thoroughly chuffed with that after a good performance in qualifying this morning. And Ewan Hankey across the line in third position, sharing that car with Sally Yoluk, so that's good points. Another podium for TF Sport. Francesco Castellacci is home in fourth position in the number 51 car, and he in the end finishes 17.8 seconds adrift of Victor Scheitar. And fifth position, we're still waiting for Nigel Moore to cross the line to complete his lap, and to complete his race indeed. So Alexei Basov will head to the podium in a moment and join his teammate Victor Scheitar. The other heart in the mouth moment, of course, was when Scheitar went a little bit wide at the corner that you can see there at turn 2. But the arm is out now, waving to the crowd, and we can get a bit of response to that race from Charlie George in the pit lane.
Well, Alexei, from pole position to the flag, that was just a perfect race. The car looks so strong.
Yes, this is gold helmets with this race, Super Pole, qualification. It's good weekend. Good work SMP Racing with Ferrari. Thank you very much, mechanic, and thank you very much, my fans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Alexei Basov and Victor Scheitar have been with SMP Racing for a good while now. I remember Alexei Basov in the Ferrari Challenge a few years ago as well.
With SMP?
Was it with SMP?
I think he might well have been with SMP. I think he's been one of their longest standing drivers. Victor Scheitar is one of these guys, as we can see there, the final order, 75 laps for the lead. So 5 cars and a minute between those top 5.
So yes, Basov continues to gain experience on these impressive circuits, Grade 1 tracks for things like the European Le Mans Series and obviously the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup, aiding his step up the sports car ladder. Congratulations to TF Sport, though, who get another podium after a great result in the opening round at Imola. And AF Corsa have managed to get one of their Ferraris into the top 4 as well, just ahead of Nigel Moore and Philip Hansen in the Audi R8 run from Tockwith Motorsports awning. But now the boards are out to receive Alexei Basov and Victor Scheitar's number 72 Ferrari. There is Klaus Bechler in the number 88 Porsche. And it'll be a little bit of a wait for Ewan Hankey now. Was it a fuel issue for the Aston Martin? Has the car made it round the lap, I wonder? It may not have been fuel related. Here it is now. So was it down into the reserve tanks? Did he make sure that that slowing down lap was particularly slow to make sure there's enough fuel left in the tank should there need to be a sample given? And it comes to a halt now as well. But definitely Ewan Hankey having to back off possibly, or just making a mistake in the middle sector. Difficult to call as the door of the Ferrari goes into the side of the Porsche. Might be a bill from Mentos Racing because of that, but I'm sure Victor Scheitar won't care a jot. It was a very impressive run indeed for Victor. A wave to the camera, and congratulations, I'm sure, in a moment or two from his teammate Basov.
And that's Steve Bunkle, who was Victor's engineer at S&P Racing in their championship year win. And Steve now looks after the LMP3 cars for United Autosports. So good to see them together again.
Yep, in the United Autosports fleece. I'd recognise that bit. Don't know Steve personally, but that's why we have you on board. You see, I think you know everybody, don't you, Graham? Just about everybody in the pit lane. So it'll be thirsty work inside that cabin for Victor Scheitar, despite the cooling conditions now at the Red Bull Ring. Klaus Bechler, no doubt, is quickly over to the team to get a quick debrief. Good to see handshakes, though, between Ewan Hankey and Victor Scheitar.
Always big smiles from Victor. He's man tempted back into motorsport by the S&P Racing squad because of the way that the drivers are graded. And coming back in as a silver driver has been a valuable asset to S&P Racing down through the years. And he's just improved year on year on year.
And there is Charlie George about to line up Victor Scheitar with the interview. And we'll give you in a moment or two how the points look heading away from Red Bull Ring to Paul Ricard. But let's hear from Victor first of all.
Congratulations, Victor. Another win for the 72 car. It looked very strong. You were still pushing all the way through that?
No, I'm push only last maybe 15 laps. I did one mistake in the third corner on the brake. I don't know why, because I'm brake, like usually, the same pressure, and I just lost the car, but I just on the straight, and after, sorry, I forget this word for English. After I come back and on the track, and I'm so I check car, everything work okay, and I push again, and we win. I'm happy. I want say a big thanks to all my team, all my mechanic, engineer, my teammate. Everything worked perfect, and we can win. And I hope in the future we'll win again. Thank you very much.
Thank you and well done. And your English is much better than my Russian.
I think we could all say amen to that somehow. As well, yeah, congratulations to Victor. Great English language skills as well. And, well, in the championship, it's so tight now because Basov and Scheitar have caught Ewan Hankey and Sally Yolok. The gap is down to a point. So we came here with Hankey and Yolok with a points gap. Actually not back to the Ferrari, heading to Red Bull Ring, but we're kind of in a similar situation, or at least TF Sport are. But they know they were in for a tight championship battle. And is this the point where the pendulum starts to swing towards SMP Racing? We'll have to find out, whether they're doing Paul Ricard. I'm assuming they're on course now for the full
rest of the
championship.
season. Correct.
And you get the sense that combination of Basov and Shaitar will be difficult to match.
Well, yes, absolutely right. But if they have a problem, but behind them, it's very close indeed. You've got the McLaren having not scored this weekend with 36 points, but then equal on 34 points. The Mentos Racing Porsche and the 51 Ferrari are right there within 3 points of those three cars. So it's tight stuff if lead cars have a problem. And let's face it, that's happened twice in the last three races.
Absolutely. These races are very, very difficult to predict. We need not say that, of course, for sports car fans. That's the whole reason we follow them, the unpredictable nature of a 2-hour race. Let's think back then to 5 o'clock local time and the incident-packed first run through the corner. The 26 Ferrari, you can't really see in that shot, but it gives the Porsche a shove up the rear there. That sends the Porsche into the rear of the McLaren 650S, turns it round on the spot. Sadly for Hiroshi Hamaguchi and Adrian Quaife-Hobbs, their car out, eliminated at turn 1. And there were several other damaged cars, not least Johnny Molam in his number 25 FF Corsa Ferrari. A front left dive plane damaged, but also heavy vibration as well. It sent the tracking out, sent the steering way out, said Johnny Molam at the end of his stint. So it was hard work to get the car into the position where it was leading the race, wasn't it, when it came in for its stop. There was much battling between, at the time, Sally Yolok in the Aston Martin and Egidio Perfetti. Contact there, and also there was a bit more contact later on in the race as well. This is a fascinating battle to watch, though, and the behaviour of an Aston Martin versus a Porsche. Each of those cars finds its pace in different places around this lap. One being front-engined, obviously, the other one rear-engined, but also how they apply their power out of slow-speed corners and then also mid-range to top range was fascinating, with the Aston Martin with the advantage. That was the spin for Egidio Perfetti. Lost him second place at the time, but he squeezed back into third behind the Aston. Off-track moment, and a big one for the number 5 Lamborghini Huracan. Aida, well, just losing grip mid-corner there, coming out of Verth. Thankfully the gravel trap did its job and it didn't find the barrier. And this was the restart after a second safety car, with Johnny Molam easily picking off Philip Hansen in the Audi R8. And then it was fascinating to see Johnny Molam's rise through the order. More battling between Perfetti and Sally Yolok. This was the second bit of contact as Egidio Perfetti tried to shoulder the Aston Martin out of its way, braking for the second corner. That was the leader at the time, Alexei Basov, who we've heard from. And in fact, that was Victor Shaitar taking the race victory. The 6 drivers then, first, second and third places already on the podium. And the SMP Racing overalls being displayed by Victor Shaitar and by Alexei Basov. Let's hear the national anthem. The Russian national anthem, and there is a team representative there on the top step as well, joining Victor and Alexei. Egidio Perfetti and Klaus Bechler to their right, on the left of the podium as we look at it, and then the other 2 guys there with the yellow boots. Sally Yolok stood next to him, his teammate Ewan Hankey. Trophies readied on the edge of the step of the podium then, and they will be presented in a moment or two.
Another very international podium as well. 5 nationalities of the 6 drivers again.
Almost as if it was planned. And there is the third place trophies then going to Ewan Hankey and Sally Yolok. If you weren't around, by the way, for earlier broadcasts, Graham's referring to an eclectic nationality collection for the Renault Sport Trophy, wasn't it? Where we had 6 drivers, each car, of course, with 2 drivers, very similar to this championship, but all 6 were from different countries around the world. That really goes to show what sort of an international flavour one of these European Le Mans Series weekends brings to whatever part of the world they may be racing in.
And increasingly so. It's finding friends in North America, it's finding friends in Asia, and it's great to see it coming together. There's a plan, it's great. So Victor Scheitart's getting plenty of practice at this. Almost nonchalant, isn't he now, as he hoses down the rest of the guys that have braved the podium.
Trying to find one or two victims to spray with the champagne. Looks like the TF Sport guys have made a swift exit there, but the two Mentos Racing drivers, Klaus and Egidio, stick around. A clink of bottles and a well-deserved slurp of champagne there. That was their conversation at the start of the race, and it was smiles then, it was smiles 2 hours later, despite an action-packed first corner. Quite how that Porsche found its way actually through the rest of the debris and the rest of the carnage, I'll never know, but the damage coming on the rear end of that Porsche, thankfully not at the front, which can have a very sensitive radiator situated just behind that front bumper. Same can't be said though for the number 26 Ferrari, popping the radiator almost on the spot. A real troubled run for the number 14 Ferrari FAF Corsa, the Delina driven machine, in and out of the pits 7 times in total, but still hung on for points for 7th place. That might prove crucial for later on in the season. So much to talk about heading away from Red Bull Ring then, and the third round of the Michelin GT3 Le Mans Cup. Join us in about a month's time for the next round at Paul Ricard. From Graham Goodwin and Johnny Palmer, it's goodbye.